We're only on this earth for a short while. But if we're lucky, we may find a soulmate who fills our days with joy and affection.
Being in love is like being on drugs. There's this feeling of I want more and more and more.
But falling in love can also be a wild ride. And if you take a wrong turn, you could wind up lost.
So many young girls get tied in with certain dudes that aren't good for them, and they just keep going.
She is just so blinded by the fact that she would do anything for her man.
It gets to the point where, they have to make a decision in their life.
When push comes to shove, who will you choose? Yourself or your man?
She's putting her trust in him. She's pouring her heart out to him.
Some men are able to see that someone is missing something and take advantage.
She had a lot of opportunities not to go down that road and never stopped.
No amount of being in love is worth your life.
March 24th, 2016, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A city once known as the heart of America's steel industry, Pittsburgh has reinvented itself for the 21st century.
Pittsburgh was on the decline for a really long time, but it's come back to life.
It's a great city. It's a city made up of a bunch of different neighborhoods, so it's a bunch of little cities in one.
But not every corner of the Steel City has kept pace with its revitalization efforts.
Pittsburgh is a very diverse city where there are areas that are extremely beautiful and safe and quiet, and then there are some neighborhoods that are extremely dangerous and violent.
One of Pittsburgh's seedier areas is a neighborhood known as Beltshoover, located on the shores of the Monongahela River.
Beltshoover is a pretty violent area, and there's a lot of drug activity, street gangs.
So when a flurry of 911 calls come in that afternoon, reporting gunshots in the Beltshoover area, Pittsburgh police are ready for anything.
And when the patrol officers arrived, they met with a witness on scene who essentially pointed them in the direction of the shots fired.
This particular location, it was a wooded area. It was relatively secluded.
As police make their way inside the brush, they come upon an unsettling scene.
They found a young man lying face down in a pool of blood.
The man doesn't respond when officers call out to him, and it quickly becomes clear why.
He's been shot more than a dozen times.
He was shot in the torso and in the face.
There was a lot of blood. Medics came to render first aid, but it was obviously too late. He was deceased.
At first glance, there's no indication of who the dead man is.
He didn't have ID, he didn't have a cell phone. So initially, we didn't have much to go on.
But police get a hit when they run the victim's fingerprints through their database.
He's identified as 21-year-old Savion Scott Ponder.
To those that knew him, Savion Scott Ponder was hardworking, kind, and creative.
He was a college student at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. It's a local school outside the Pittsburgh area.
There, Savion pursued his lifelong dream of becoming a fashion designer.
I believe he had a clothing company.
He was always into clothes and to design, and that's what he wanted to do with his life.
He had a bright future ahead of him. He was in college, he was trying to make ends meet, he was doing the hustle, but he was also doing the studying.
And in November of 2015, Savion got some life-changing news. He was about to become a father.
He had a girlfriend. They were a pretty new thing. This wasn't something they had planned, but he really stepped up to the plate. He got an apartment with his girlfriend and another good friend. He was going to school, he was trying to build a life for himself and for his family.
But now, Savion has been found brutally shot to death in a wooded area on the seedy south side of Pittsburgh. And as investigators search the crime scene for clues, they keep coming up empty-handed.
There was little evidence to go on.
We recovered 7 casings. But other than that, there wasn't a ton of physical evidence to help us.
The crime scene wasn't extraordinarily elaborate, but what's very interesting was the fact that he didn't have shoes on.
It's a small detail that strikes the detectives as potentially significant.
There was no real reason why the shoes were off. There's nothing that showed that there were any gunshot wounds by his legs or his feet to that extent. Possibly there were a pair of expensive shoes that were taken.
We thought robbery was a possibility. People like shoes, it's kind of a commodity.
Had Savion been killed in a robbery gone wrong? Or is there another explanation for his violent death? Investigators hope that their eyewitness holds the answer.
Well, we started with the original 911 caller, who was a resident of the area. They saw the vehicle drive down, which was very strange because it's not a very high trafficked area.
Even more strange, this witness then says that she saw 2 men dragging another man into the woods.
A few moments later, she heard a barrage of gunshots coming from the woods. She told police it sounded like someone emptied their gun.
It's not a firing range. There's no reason to hear 1 gunshot, let alone multiple, 10 plus.
Once the shooting stopped, the witness says only 2 of the men emerged from the woods and fled in a gray car.
So you have basically someone driving a car to a desolate location, 3 individuals, 1 being led into a field, and then only 2 coming back. It's pretty clear at this point this isn't a robbery.
It sounds more like a cold-blooded murder.
If you're just there to steal someone's shoes, you're not gonna shoot them a dozen more times.
This was just straight execution.
Then the question becomes, why was Savion the target of such an execution?
March 24th, 2016. After responding to a string of urgent 911 calls, Pittsburgh police have found 21-year-old college student Savion Scott Ponder shot to death in a wooded area on the south side of town.
The responding officer saw a large amount of blood, and the victim had no shoes on. It appeared to the officers that he had been shot multiple times.
At first, investigators thought they could be dealing with a robbery. But now, an eyewitness account has led them to consider another possibility.
It sounds like an execution-style murder.
There wasn't anything to indicate at that time that it had anything to do with a robbery.
Along with the witness's account, the sheer violence of the crime points to a more personal motive.
To shoot someone over a dozen times, you have to have a real vendetta against him.
It showed that the person was either very angry or wanted to make sure that the victim was dead, or to send some sort of message.
My partners and I worked through the evening to work the angle from the initial witness saying that they saw 2 black males in a gray car fleet. So we kind of try to work backwards, the things we do know, which is the victim's identity.
We tried to speak with family or friends or get any idea of who he was, where he was, why he would be there.
His mom said he was staying at 5 Boggs Avenue, which is in very close distance. It's within 1.5 miles or so of the murder scene. So our next move was to go to that area.
At the apartment, police are met by Savion's devastated girlfriend and their roommate. The couple's roommate tells police he last saw Savion the day before, and he'd noticed Savion was acting strange.
His roommate tells officers that Savion was a small-time drug dealer that sold a little bit, here and there to help cover the rent.
He also mentions that earlier in the day, Savion had left to go sell some Xanax to a woman. He never told his roommate the name of the woman, but one thing that his roommate did note was that when Savion got home, he had a bunch of cash on him.
Savion seemed happy with the deal he'd struck. But later that afternoon, there was a knock at the door.
According to the roommate, Savion answered the door and went outside.
Savion's roommate said that he went to the window to take a peek at what was going on.
He said he saw Savion climb into the passenger seat of a Ford Focus with 2 men in the back seat and a woman behind the wheel.
And that's the last time the witnesses see Savion.
Savion's roommate didn't recognize any of the individuals in the car. Yet his information is still vital for the investigation.
So now, armed with that, we have a pretty good idea that this is a murder, probably based on a drug deal gone bad.
The description of the car matched the one the witness saw at the crime scene, so police were pretty sure that these individuals were Savion's killers.
But who are the 3 suspects? Detectives immediately get to work trying to find out.
We do a canvas for surveillance video. It's very common. We do it all the time.
Right off the bat, we get this video from one of the businesses right on that main street on Boggs.
As the tape rolls, detectives bear witness to a chilling scene.
We were able to obtain video that shows the victim actually bail out of a moving car.
And then 2 black males exit the vehicle on each side and chase him.
He runs up the back of the building. It's a pretty steep hill, and you can really see the fear in the victim, and you can see that he's running for his life.
It was a pretty intense, let's say, foot chase. At which point, a 3rd suspect stayed in the vehicle and drove around almost in an attempt to either cut him off or an attempt to gain an advantage on catching him on the other side of this steep hill.
He eventually runs around this building, and then in the rear of the building, the surveillance doesn't actually show where they can capture him, but it does show shortly thereafter, they're walking him down, holding him by the arms.
And you can see he's out of breath, that he really wanted to get away. He realized that this situation could end badly.
It's a harrowing scene that's difficult for even the most seasoned investigators to watch.
We obviously know that Savion was murdered, and so what we're looking at is the last few moments of his life.
The video also provides a key piece of evidence.
The video is very clear and very close, and you're able to see everyone's face.
The footage provided a description of all 3 suspects, but even more importantly, it gave them the license plate of the Ford Focus.
We got the license plate off her car, and that's how we identified it. Erica Harris.
The name doesn't ring any bells for homicide detectives.
We didn't know her prior to this day. I didn't have any interaction with her, nor did any of my partners or colleagues that I'm aware of.
Looking into Erica's background, she doesn't seem like a hardened criminal.
On the contrary, 24-year-old Erica Harris appears to be a happy, well-adjusted young woman on the path to success.
Growing up, Erica lived a very soft life, as some people would say. Her and her father had a really great relationship. She was referred to as Daddy's little angel by so many people that knew them.
We found out she had a steady job. She seemed like she was organized and fairly intelligent. She seemed to care about her family and her friends.
She was going to go to school, and she seemed like someone that had her own thing going on.
But behind closed doors, Erica was still suffering from the tragedy of losing her father just a couple years earlier.
Sadly, when her father died, that changed everything for Erica. Her whole life, just felt shattered, and things really got out of control.
Typically, we associate our fathers with security and safety and protection. So those are some of the really important things that would be missing if suddenly her father is no longer around. Who's there to make her feel secure and to make her feel unconditionally loved.
Erica tried to soldier on, but life wasn't the same without the person who mattered most to her.
Trauma impacts us in every way that you can think about. Physically, emotionally, relationally, mentally. Some people may hide inward, but others will externalize their trauma. So they might run for the bad boys or engage in more risque behaviors.
Erica longed to find someone to fill the hole in her heart. And she finally did when she met 21-year-old Mitchell Coles.
When they met, it was like an instant connection. Like, you were the person I've always been looking for.
She thought he was going to be the one that was going to provide, the one that was going to get her life back on track.
You could tell that she did have a lot invested in their relationship and that they cared about each other and they were very intimate and just very close.
But there was a side of Mitchell that gave Erica pause.
Unfortunately, Mitchell was a drug dealer, and Erica wasn't a fan of that at all. But what could she do? She loved him, and the sense of security and safety that provided was beyond anything she ever imagined.
She saw him as a loving man, someone that she could build a future with. And they had a connection, and there was a bond there outside of the drug dealing. There were so many other things that came with his life that was rewarding for her.
But now, detectives are wondering, did Mitchell Coles drag Erica into his life of crime?
Mitchell, he had a fairly violent criminal history. He was involved in shootings, firearms violations, stuff like that.
And when investigators roll back the tape of Savion's abduction, they find their answer.
We look at the surveillance video of the individuals chasing Savion Ponder, and one of the individuals appears to be Mitchell Coles.
You could see it as clear as day that it was him. With any homicide investigation, one of the best things you can get is video surveillance. Everybody loves to see what happened on screen. So not only in this case, but in all our other cases, we always go door to door or business to business to see if anyone has any surveillance video that would catch anything that we need. As small as it might be to somebody, it could be really important to us.
March 2016. After discovering surveillance video of 21-year-old Savion Scott Ponder's abduction, Pittsburgh police have identified Erica Harris as one of 3 suspects in Savion's murder.
You could look at it and say, oh, it's very clear that that's her vehicle being so distinct and being right on video. There's a nail in the coffin.
Police believe that Erica's boyfriend, Mitchell Coles, is one of the other individuals caught on tape.
We had evidence from the video surveillance that he intentionally ran after him, caught up to him, and forcibly dragged him back to the vehicle.
Now, detectives are ready to take their suspects into custody.
2 detectives in our office took a ride up through the north side to an area where they knew Mitchell Coles to be living at and observed the gray Ford out front.
So they call for backup, and some other officers and detectives arrived, including myself.
They found both suspects inside, and they surrendered without incident.
At this point, both Erica and Mitchell are taken to the police department and then transferred over for interrogation.
The detectives decide to start with Erica.
Once we brought Erica back to interview her, she sat in the room. She was very cold. She almost pretended like this wasn't that big of a deal, and she seemed to be oddly calm.
The best way I can describe it, when someone comes in, you offer them water or a drink or Pepsi or a cigarette. But when you interview innocent people, they generally are very frightened and don't really want anything.
We actually offered Erica an ice cream sandwich, and she took it, which we found to be very strange.
And I remember me and Detective Kale were like, man, nobody's taken the ice cream sandwich before.
We're talking about a murder, and she's eating an ice cream sandwich.
While Erica's behavior raises red flags, she refrains from admitting any wrongdoing.
Erica remains composed the entire time, and she disavows any knowledge of Savion's abduction and later murder. She tells detectives she has nothing to say.
That's when investigators offer to cut her a deal.
It's called Queen for a Day, and it means that you can come in, say all your involvement, implicate as many people as you can in exchange for a reduced sentence.
It's basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, but Erica wasn't biting.
She wouldn't answer any questions. She was just not helpful.
Eventually, she lawyered up, and then she was arrested and charged and taken to the county jail.
With Erica refusing to talk, detectives turn their attention to her boyfriend, Mitchell Coles.
But just like Erica, Mitchell Coles says he doesn't know what's going on.
He started with, I wasn't there, I don't know who this is. And then once she's presented with the evidence that we had, he realized that if he says something that maybe he could talk his way out of it.
Detectives pull out the footage and show Mitchell chasing Savion down when Savion gets out the car. So at this point, they're expecting a confession. Instead, Mitchell says that they were racing.
While Mitchell never admits to being involved in Savion's murder, his absurd claim about racing does give the investigators more ammunition to use against him.
He puts himself on the scene. He's not denying it's him. He also said Erica had nothing to do with it. All she did was drive. So of course he implicates her as being part of what occurred.
It was huge because whenever you can corroborate any evidence, I mean, we had the video surveillance of her vehicle, we had her in the driver's seat, and we had Mitchell putting her there, putting her basically at the crime the whole time.
But there's another huge piece of this puzzle that's still missing.
We knew there was a third actor involved.
Who was the man that was in the car with Mitchell and Eric?
Detectives are about to find out. From the last place they could have imagined.
We received information that was really important to us.
Erica had a change of heart.
She's now willing to cooperate and give them everything.
In March of 2016, Pittsburgh police have arrested 2 individuals in the shooting murder of Savion Scott Ponder, Erica Harris, and Mitchell Coles.
We had a massive amount of evidence we were able to compile against them.
Erica was in love, and so she was willing to do anything. She put a lot of her feelings and even common sense aside to be by her man.
Detectives believe another unidentified man helped the couple commit their crime. But so far, Erica and Mitchell have refused to give up his name.
There was a lack of willing to play ball.
Without their cooperation, police had no way of identifying who the man in the surveillance video was.
It was kind of fruitless at that point.
But then, the investigators received surprising news from the county jail.
Once she was in jail, Erica found out she was pregnant.
Mitchell, the co-defendant, is the dad.
The realization that she's carrying a child forces Erica to reevaluate her situation.
Finding out that you're pregnant changes a lot for you because now you're no longer thinking about you, you're thinking about your child.
That is pivotal on what her next moves are going to be because she is now about to become a parent.
Although Erica was previously willing to stand by Mitchell till the end, she now signals to the investigators that she's ready to cut a deal.
The idea of being pregnant while in jail has got to be terrifying, right? And I imagine that gave her a new perspective on life. And that must have been that shift. Like, let me now say something. If it'll save me and my baby in any way.
So she comes in with her attorney. We have the district attorney. And she agrees to give the statement with a number of stipulations.
First and foremost, Erica is required to tell police everything she knows about the murder of Savion Scott Ponder.
Also, she had to give up her consent to having her phone forensically downloaded for the content.
But for Erica, the most troubling condition of all comes last.
Part of the deal was for reduced charges, that she was going to not have further communications with Mr. Coles while he was in jail.
For someone like Erica, not being able to talk to someone you see as the love of your life, that might have been a worse sentence than prison.
Keep in mind, she's pregnant. If you thought they were close before the incident, this is now a bond that's way beyond anything they felt before.
With no other options on the table, Erica reluctantly agrees to the deal. And before long, she's sitting down with investigators to tell them exactly what happened on the night of Savion's death.
According to Erica, this all started when she agreed to run an errand for her boyfriend. She would do anything Mitchell asked her. This time she agreed to go pick up some drugs from Savion.
She loved him and she wants to prove her love to him. So she ran the errand.
It just so happened instead of getting a gallon of milk, she was going to buy weed.
Erica tells the detectives that Mitchell gave her $800 in cash, along with Savion's address.
So basically, she was simply supposed to pick up these drugs from Savion in and out.
She believes she's buying marijuana that can then be resold. At which point, once the transaction occurs, Ponder gives her Xanax instead of marijuana. Erica attempts to say she doesn't want the Xanax, she wants marijuana, at which point Ponder tells her, you get what you get, you're out.
She gave him this money and she didn't get her drugs. So trouble was afoot.
She calls Mitchell and says, hey, our guy just burned me for $800.
Erica says that call started a chain of events she never saw coming.
Mitchell was furious, and he was determined to get his money back by any means necessary.
I don't know what was going through her mind at that point, but I can't imagine that she thought that anything good was going to happen to Ponder by getting Mitchell Coles involved.
Before confronting Savion, Mitchell decided to recruit some extra muscle.
Erica says this is the person that was in the car with them, the person who was on the surveillance video. And she tells the police his name is Johnny Rains.
Mitchell and him had a long relationship. They were associates. They had been shot together. So they've been involved in this criminal life together.
Erica tells the detectives she was worried about what the two men were going to do to Savion, but not worried enough to back out of the plan.
She is just so blinded by the fact that she would do anything for her man. This is the man that stepped in when her father was gone. This is the man that she was in love with.
So, Erica agreed to drive Mitchell and Johnny to Savion's apartment.
They told Savion to get them their money or else.
At that point, it doesn't go so well. Mr. Ponder had subsequently used that $800, threw in another $100 of his own, and bought $900 worth of Xanax pills. At that point, he didn't have the marijuana to give them for the money.
Mitchell and Johnny forced Savion into the passenger seat of Erica's car.
And they drive around for him to try to either get the marijuana or get the money back from the Xanax.
Savion knows he's in trouble, and he tries to remedy the situation. Initially, he tries to sell the Xanax back to the person he bought it from. They're like, forget it. You did this deal. We're not giving you your money back.
When that became apparent to Mr. Cole and Mr. Rains that they weren't getting their money back, that's when things started to escalate.
That is when Savion flees the vehicle and runs until they capture him. So that amps up the energy in the situation. They are angry.
After Savion's escape attempt, Erica says Mitchell was done messing around.
Once they get back in that car, the mood is different.
The situation just escalated and kept escalating and escalating.
Mitchell tells Erica that they need to go to Beltouver.
One way or another, Savion was going to pay.
The next thing you know, she's hearing gunshots.
April 2016. A month after Savion Scott Ponder was found shot to death, Erica Harris has agreed to tell the Pittsburgh police everything she knows about the homicide.
Erica and Mitchell, what they were trying to do was recoup the money that they had believed they had been burnt. The victim had not given them the marijuana that they believed they were supposed to purchase.
Erica has told investigators that, despite her misgivings, she agreed to go along with her boyfriend's plan to make Savion pay.
When emotions are high, logic is low.
Erica really was someone who prioritized Mitchell. She loved him, and she was very much invested in protecting him.
Any hesitation Erica had was drowned out by her desire to do anything to help her man.
So, when Mitchell ordered her to drive to a secluded area in South Pittsburgh, Erica did as she was told.
Erica's fear level was rising, not knowing what would happen next and not knowing what Mitchell would do.
She was thinking, maybe he's gonna beat him up. But you also have to think in your mind, I don't know how far this could go.
Erica says she waited in the car while Mitchell and his friend Johnny Rains led Savion into the woods.
They hook him up under the arms and they escort him. Essentially, they're walking him to his death.
Savion had to be terrified out of his mind.
Any doubts Erica had about what her boyfriend was going to do to Savion were quickly dispelled.
She heard gunshots coming from the woods.
Not long after that, Mitchell and Johnny walked back from the woods, and they were carrying Savion's shoes, but Savion was not with them.
On the drive home, Erica says neither of the men said a word.
She said it was quiet. They didn't really talk about it. They didn't know what to say.
But which of the two men pulled the trigger? Investigators hope that Johnny Rains may provide the answer.
We were able to get a warrant for Johnny Rains as the third accomplice, and the next day we went out and got him.
Detectives questioned Johnny about what happened after he and Mitchell walked into the woods with Savion. But despite undergoing hours of rigorous interrogation, Johnny remains tight-lipped.
He didn't make a statement either, and to date, he's never made a statement about his guilt or his participation.
That's a big problem for this investigation, because it's tough to convict somebody of murder if you don't actually know who the shooter is.
With Johnny refusing to talk, the investigators decide to take another swing at Mitchell Coles.
Once Mitchell heard Erica was talking, he told detectives he wanted a plea deal of his own.
Part of Mitchell's plea bargain was that he gave up all the information, that he took a step-by-step through the case.
So Mitchell came in and gave us a second interview, which he detailed how Savion was murdered.
Mitchell's story picks up where Erica's left off, as he and Johnny Rains walked Savion into the woods in Beltshoover.
They got him out, walked him in. I want to say it was about 30 to 50 feet, maybe. I would assume they were trying to just get as secluded as they could.
Mitchell rationalizes it by telling us that you got to do what you got to do. There's bills that need paid. You're not ripping me off.
I think Savion knew what was about to happen. He knows they're armed. They're agitated because he ran. He has to know that he's either going to get beaten severely or killed.
According to Mitchell, Savion's terror was plain to see.
He's talking, and Mitchell flat out asks him, so what are you doing? He's like, I'm praying.
He's praying that they're not going to hurt him because he had full intentions of trying to make it right. He was trying to do anything he could that they wouldn't harm him.
But Mitchell and Johnny had no intentions of letting Savion go.
That's when Johnny Rains takes Ponder's shoes off of him.
They remove his shoes in an attempt for him not to attempt to escape again.
And then Savion says to them, like, what are you going to do now? Are you going to pistol whip me? Are you going to beat my ass?
That's when Mitchell's like, well, we have to do something here. It's the end of the road.
I don't think the day of this murder, Johnny and Erica, that they woke up, choosing violence. I think that there was a situation where a drug deal went wrong, and they were there to stand by Mitchell, whether it was Johnny standing by his dude, his homeboy, or Erica standing by her boyfriend, the love of her life, and her man. I think this is a situation, unfortunately, of them getting themselves in a situation and led to the death of someone who did not deserve to die.
By the spring of 2016, Pittsburgh police have arrested 3 suspects for the murder of Savion Scott Ponder, Erica Harris, Mitchell Coles, and Johnny Rains.
Investigators have all three perps in custody.
Now, after learning that his girlfriend is cooperating with the investigators, Mitchell Coles has agreed to provide a statement of his own. He admits that he and his friend, Johnny Rains, forced Savion into the woods.
That's when Mitchell's like, well, we have to do something here. It's the end of the road. And then Mitchell produces that gun, and it's all over for him. He says, I take the gun out and I shoot him.
But according to Mitchell, he wasn't the only one who shot Savion.
During the second interview with Mitchell Coles, he indicates that he shot Savion multiple times and handed the gun to Johnny.
He gave the gun to Johnny Rains, who then emptied the clip onto Savion.
And that was incredibly chilling during that interview of Mr. Coles. It was stone cold killer at that point.
Mitchell's statement clears up any remaining doubt about what happened to Savion.
We knew there was one gun used, but we didn't really know how that sequence went down until Mitchell comes in and tells us.
I can't get into their head to why they did that. I would just have to assume or to think that Mitchell wanted Johnny to be as culpable in the homicide as he was. So if he fired into the victim as well, it would also make him part of the murder.
We do believe Mitchell because it did fit what happened. It fit the details of the case. The way the scene was and the sound of like emptying the gun from the witnesses, his story did fit.
Following his confession, Mitchell Coles pleads guilty to conspiracy, kidnapping, and third-degree murder.
In the state of Pennsylvania, there's 3 degrees of homicide. There's first-degree murder, and that's the one we all think about when you think of a premeditated murder. Second-degree murder is when someone is murdered in the commission of a felony. Third-degree murder would be any other sort of murder where your actions, you intended to kill that person.
Mitchell's statement also seals the fate of Johnny Rains.
That same month, Johnny Rains pleads guilty as well.
I think once he realized that, Erica had given us a statement and then Mitchell gave us a statement, I think the writing was on the wall.
Both men are sentenced to serve up to 50 years in prison. But the last of the 3 defendants, Erica Harris, is anticipating a far milder punishment.
Ultimately, she was charged with the kidnapping.
The reason why Erica is not facing a murder charge is because of the fact that she agreed with prosecutors to not have any contact with her boyfriend, Mitchell Coles, during the entire investigation.
However, as her sentencing date draws near, investigators learn that Erica hasn't been keeping up her end of the bargain.
We realized that she'd still been talking to Mitchell on the phone.
We monitored jail communications, phone calls. So we know they're communicating and they still had a relationship. They were still saying, I love you, still communicating against the agreement.
Erica's kidnapping charges are now upgraded to include the same third-degree murder charges as Mitchell and Johnny.
And so the judge changed the sentencing based on her actions. When she broke the rule or the stipulations that the judge gave her, the good deal that we were going to give you, you can't get anymore.
The gravity of Erica's mistake doesn't fully sink in until she goes before a judge in August of 2017.
I remember when Erica Harris was sentenced, it seemed like she was almost shocked. We were in the courtroom and the judge handed her down a sentence of 20 to 45 years. Once all the circumstances and the facts of the case came out, the judge realized that even though she didn't pull the trigger, she had just as much culpability in this homicide as the other 2 did.
Savion's family is relieved to learn that none of their loved one's killers are going to get off easy.
When we spoke to them when the sentencing was happening, nothing we do, no sentence we're going to give them is going to make them whole again. They lost their son, their boyfriend, their best friend, their loved one, and we're never going to fix that. But I think some closure comes in the fact that we got substantial sentences on everybody involved, including the driver, Ms. Harris.
As for Erica Harris, she'll have decades behind bars to reflect on where she went wrong.
There were so many opportunities along the way for her to have pulled back and just save herself. But she sacrificed her life for Mitchell, and not just her life, but the life of her child, because this child's gonna be without a mom and dad that's free in his or her life.
If I had $1 for every time I've been in an interview room and had to tell a young female, you have to think about yourself and the rest of your life. This man may have loved you, but look at the situation he got you in.
History has shown that even fairy tale romances can end in unimaginable tragedy. When you take a wrong turn in love, you may get trapped at a dead end and end up losing it all.
Orlando, Florida single mother Angel Glenn does whatever it takes to support her toddler.
She was a stripper and men fawned over her.
But when she hooks up with a bad boy, Angel crosses over from a world of seduction into a life of crime.
Angel was trying to find herself and being intrigued by this young man who had money because he sold drugs.
She was very much in love with him. She had no idea that she was setting up a bloodbath.
And later, in Hershey, Pennsylvania, desperate housewife Carolyn King abandons her family in search of a fresh start, only to find her perfect match in a local convict.
They were just in love, infatuated, and smitten. I think she just wooed him in such a way that he just couldn't resist.
But it turns out to be a match made in hell for anyone who gets in the way of Carolyn and her man.
They had her stripped naked, placed the gun at her head, and pulled the trigger.
They were as thick as thieves. They would do anything for each other.
Orlando, Florida may be the happiest place on earth for some, but not for child of divorce Angel Glenn, who's kept on a short leash by her mother.
The breakup of the marriage might have caused her mom to be more sheltering of Angel.
A dutiful daughter and a model student, Angel seems to be destined for a life on the straight and narrow until puberty hits and the good girl turns into a voluptuous teenager overnight.
For Angel, growing up in a home where her father wasn't a steady influence in her life perhaps put her at risk for being a little boy crazy. In other words, trying to find her father through as many male figures as she could.
And it doesn't take long for Angel to go from discovering boys to getting pregnant.
Angel had a baby when she was 18 years old, and the father of this little boy was not involved in her life.
Where are you going? She drops out of school, but her church-going mother blames the men Angel runs with for leading her astray.
There is this tendency for good girls to like bad boys, and it seems that Angel may have fallen prey to that particular pattern.
Determined to get her on the right track, Angel's mom tells her daughter she needs to get a job to support her son or get out of the house. But Angel knows her options are limited, and the only thing she believes she has going for herself are her looks.
She's a pretty girl, and pretty girls like attention. So Angel began to perform as a stripper at private parties.
Stripping yields quick, easy cash that you would out-earn your counterparts that are working at a local drive-in or a fast food restaurant.
And it's during a night out that Angel happens to attract the attention of 22-year-old twin brothers, Dante and Dante Hall.
They're very, very difficult to tell apart. The only distinctive feature is Dante has a tattoo on his neck, and it says, "Money ain't a thing."
Despite Dante's best efforts, Angel finds herself drawn to Dante, who seems to be the one in charge.
Dante was the more aggressive and certainly the more assertive of the two, and the two of them were dedicated to each other, but basically Dante followed Dante's lead.
Angel was very attracted to Dante because, unlike his twin, Dante was much, much more aggressive, much more the bad boy, and certainly Angel had this very rebellious spirit.
Not only are the Hall brothers identical twins, they share the same profession. Both are major cocaine dealers with a reputation for ruthlessness that is well known and feared throughout all of Orlando.
They had developed a certain clientele among the crack users in particular. And so people knew that if you wanted to buy crack, that you would go to see Dante and Dante.
Dante had this danger in his lifestyle that she just was drawn to.
The attraction is instant and mutual, and Angel and Dante dive into a relationship that lasts the entire summer.
They stayed together at various motels and would get together as much as they could.
Angel seems at ease as the girlfriend of a notorious drug dealer, leaving her son with her mother for long stretches to spend more time with Dante, who has now graduated from merely dealing drugs to robbing other drug dealers.
The one thing about choosing criminals as your victims is that criminals don't typically call the police for help.
Dante finds another way to make money as well, by helping himself to a cut of the money Angel makes from dancing.
And this became an opportunity for Angel to embed herself into his life, to be able to take care of him and give him the things that would sustain him.
Life goes on this way for several weeks. Until one day, when Angel receives a call from a man named Billy Robinson, a potential client Angel met a few days earlier.
Billy and Angel met in Orlando, and Angel made it clear that she was willing to dance for money.
So you all are gonna take care of us then?
And so through Billy, this party got set up for Friday night at a place in Eustis, which is about an hour's drive away from Orlando. At one point, Billy told her, "You be sure to get your girls because we're gonna be giving you a lot of money."
Dante is present and is overhearing both sides of the conversation via the speakerphone.
After hearing the phone call, Dante's thinking, guys with all that money to spend on strippers, they must be rolling in cash.
And Dante, the consummate businessman, comes up with a plan. He and his crew will rob the party, and Angel will serve as bait.
She willingly went along with it because that was her boyfriend, and Angel, at one level, understood that her boyfriend was potentially dangerous.
In Orlando, Florida, private dancer Angel Glenn and her boyfriend Dante Hall plan to rob a party of one of Angel's clients. All she has to do is follow Dante's lead.
Once Angel is inside the party, Dante and friends will enter the party to rob the patrons there.
Girl, get up. What are you doing?
That afternoon, Angel calls two girlfriends she's worked with before to dance at the party with her, while Dante calls his brother and they plan the robbery. Later that night, Angel and the girls make the hour-long drive to Eustis, followed by Dante, and a neighborhood friend.
Angel did not convey to the other dancers that a robbery was about to take place.
In no time, Angel and the girls are on the scene in Eustis, and the party is underway, while Dante and his crew sit tight in a car down the street.
The girls had started dancing, the guys were drinking, there was a little drug use in the party. So it was a very festive atmosphere.
But Angel never forgets the real why and who she's there for.
There were a number of phone calls back and forth between Dante and Angel. Dante was asking her, how many guys are there? Do they have guns? What room are you guys in? And he instructed her to try to entice everybody into one place, because of course it would be easier for them to control the crowd if they were all in one spot. So she did as she was instructed.
Girls were dancing, the girls were being tipped, the guys were drinking, they were laughing, joking, having a good time.
When Angel has everything set just the way Dante wants it, that's when he and his crew make their entrance.
Dante was the first one in the house, and he was armed with an assault rifle, an AK-47, which on the street they call a chapa. And right behind him were his brother, Dante, and a third guy carrying 9mm pistols. And Dante ordered everybody to get on the ground. He said that if they didn't do what they were told, he was gonna make this choppa dance.
Angel hits the floor with everyone else. And while she may be the one who set all this up, even she isn't prepared for what happens next.
Then as they were on the floor, they were also reaching for the money and the jewelry that they wanted for a reason that is still really not clear, other than the fact that perhaps he wanted to get the partygoers to understand he was serious. Dante fires off a couple rounds with the AK-47.
Dante fires at the concrete ceiling and the bullets ricochet, hitting several partygoers, killing a man named Anthony Blunt.
Dante continued to spray the place. His girlfriend, Angel, was in just as much danger as any of the other partygoers or the other dancers.
He disregards her safety, and that should have been a moment for Angel to have a second thought about the relationship that she has with Dante.
She probably didn't think that Dante was capable of such acts at that moment because she loved him.
So far, the take from the robbery is just under $1,500 and some jewelry, much less than Dante expected. He's not happy.
And he and his friends fired off a few rounds to emphasize that they meant business and they wanted the rest of the money. Keeson Evans, who was one of the higher-ups in the group, said, "All right, you want more money."
It's in the back of the shoebox.
Dante sends Dante to look for the money, which doesn't really exist.
Yo, snuck me here.
When Dante returns to the main room empty-handed, Angel sees just how far Dante's willing to take this.
He's angry at the fact that one of the partygoers lied to him, and so at that moment, he decides to teach a guy that lesson.
He locates Keeson and shoots him in the head.
Realizing there isn't going to be a larger payoff, Dante and his crew take off, leaving the girls behind.
I believe Angel was caught off guard, and that although she knew she was helping her boyfriend come in and rob some folks who was just there to party, she did not expect that people were gonna die as a result of it.
In all, 5 men were shot, 4 by ricocheting bullets, 1 fatally. And Keeson Evans was executed.
It's a complete miracle that anybody walked out of there. The fact that you had someone who was firing off an AK-47 is amazing that anybody left that room.
Angel and the other girls, both in shock, flee the scene. On their way back to Orlando, Angel comes clean with her fellow dancers and admits to helping set up the robbery.
One of the girls says, "You're stupid. Why did you ever endanger our lives like this? You could have been killed. We could have been killed. Why would you do something like that?"
Angel says something like, "This is how Dante and I make money now."
Here is Angel involved in a situation where people were hurt and killed, and she's bragging about it to all of them. And this speaks to me of a process of dissociation.
After the girls make it back to Orlando, Angel and Dante reconnect.
She saw up close and personal what Dante was capable of doing. She was definitely afraid.
I think she realized what she stood to lose. 2 days later, one of the dancers provided the law enforcement officers with a break in the case.
And in the aftermath of their robbery gone wrong, Angel Glenn and Dante Hall are forced to choose between love or self-preservation. And later in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Carolyn King finds her soulmate in a soulless ex-con.
She's getting a high, she's getting excitement, she's getting a thrill. And so sometimes people keep seeking that pleasure, so they engage in the crime over and over again.
What began as a raucous house party in Eustis, Florida, turned into a bloodbath after a robbery gone wrong, orchestrated by stripper Angel Glenn and her boyfriend, Dante Hall. Having made off with less than $1,500 in cash and some watches, gold chains, and rings, a disgruntled Dante orders Angel to pawn the jewelry.
Dante has an outstanding warrant for murder. And so if he were to pawn something in his name, that's something that might turn up in a system that shows that he is, one, local, and two, that he's been involved in a serious robbery where people died.
Angel does what she's told, sacrificing her anonymity and risking her freedom to please the love of her life.
It is a pretty stupid thing to do for Angel to put her name on a pawn slip for goods that are tied to a homicide.
It's quite clear from a psychological point of view that Angel just stopped thinking. She was just invested in this relationship with Dante, and she just was not looking at what her actions were and what the consequences were going to be.
But it's not the jewelry that implicates the couple. It's one of the other dancers who comes forward 3 nights after the robbery.
Danielle, one of the dancers, hears that 2 people died in the robbery, and she goes to the police to say that Angel and her boyfriend Dante were involved in the robbery where the 2 people died.
This was our first break in this case. Up until then, this was truly a whodunit.
2 days later, police track Angel down and bring her in for questioning. Dante is nowhere to be found.
I don't feel like talking right now.
The interrogation went on for several hours, and her demeanor was defiant and deceptive throughout.
Angel lied multiple times to the law enforcement officers, saying that she didn't have any information, and then once she said that she did have some information, she kept saying that Dante wasn't involved.
Angel lied to protect Dante several times during the investigation. Eventually, she went on to say that she lied only to protect her family, but it appears she lied in reality only to get more of Dante's love and to prove to him that she was worthy of all of his affection and love.
Angel quickly changes her mind upon learning she could face the death penalty.
Where y'all want me?
In Florida, even though she didn't squeeze the trigger, didn't want anybody to be shot, she was instrumental in the robbery during which somebody got shot. And as a result, she is legally responsible for the homicides.
With the possibility of lethal injection or a life sentence in front of her, Angel Glenn strikes a deal. She confesses to setting up the robbery and gives police the name of the motel where Dante is currently hiding out.
Her mother influenced her to cooperate because her mom could talk to her about the possibility of never being able to see her son on the outside again, and that she would never get to raise him. And I'm sure that the maternal instinct at some point had an impact on her decision to cooperate.
Dante and his twin are arrested without incident. Angel is released on bond, with one of the conditions being that she not have any contact with Dante, who sits in jail awaiting trial. But Angel still loves him too much to stay away.
Dante received a number of letters from her, including photos, and one of them, she's got her ankle monitor on at the time. So we know that the picture was taken while she was out on bond.
Angel wanted to have her cake and eat it too. On the one hand, she still wanted to be part of Dante's life, even though she was told not to be in contact with him. But on the other hand, she also wanted her freedom, which is something that she had.
For violating the terms of her release, Angel is thrown back in jail, where she remains for several months until the Hall brothers go on trial.
There was no further communication of any sort between them.
Thanks to Angel's testimony, Dante and Dante Hall are found guilty on 2 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy. Dante is sentenced to death and is currently on death row. Dante gets life without parole. It's now Angel Glenn's turn to face the music. She's sentenced to 10 years for conspiracy to commit murder.
She did express that she was sorry for what happened. I think she was in love with the idea of being in love, and Dante embodied power for her, and she was attracted to the power.
Looking at Angel Glenn in her situation, is she a threat to society? Probably not by herself. But however, watch out, because if she gets with someone who is dangerous, then that can have some really bad consequences.
When I first met Angel, she was a wannabe thug girlfriend. And soon that facade of the hard street girl fell away because that really wasn't her lifestyle. The real Angel is actually a pretty nice person.
Angel Glenn's desire for adventure in her life drove her to commit senseless acts in the name of love. A fate destined to be shared by Hershey, Pennsylvania transplant Carolyn King, who falls for a man she's willing to do anything to hold on to. Raised by her grandparents in Virginia, Carolyn King's early years aren't the most ideal.
She grew up in a family that they didn't have the most money. There were some issues of sexual abuse, even I think some drug abuse involved.
Looking to correct a void in her life, Carolyn gets married at 20 and has 2 children. But after 6 years of marriage, she feels like her best years are falling behind her. At 26, Carolyn walks out on her family and hits the road in search of something new.
Having kids isn't something that you can undo. She must have felt trapped. Something must have been really wrong in that marriage, or with Carolyn herself.
What we call it in the field is structural dislocation. When either by force or by choice, they have attachment to their family, but it's not a true attachment, and they just up and leave and abandon them. And this is what we see with Carolyn.
But with limited means and no reliable transportation, Carolyn doesn't get very far, only making it to Hershey, Pennsylvania, some 200 miles away.
And she got a job working in a plant that broke down bulk candy into smaller packaging for retail purposes.
She didn't have family there. She didn't have friends there. She really had no contacts or connection.
The only thing Carolyn has is a job so routine, it leaves the restless 26-year-old wanting more. A desire shared by 20-year-old Brad Martin, a recent hire at the factory who helps take some of the edge off.
Brad was a handsome young man. You know, he was tall, very young, good-looking guy.
Still relatively new to the job herself, Carolyn forges an instant bond with Brad, who also happens to be serving time at the Lebanon County Prison just up the road.
Brad had been in and out of the county prison for a variety of drug charges, a burglary charge, and violated the terms of that probation and was reincarcerated for that.
He was serving a sentence of 6 to 23 months.
He was granted work release privileges that allowed him to go out and work for an 8-hour day and then return to the prison for overnight.
Though only on the job a few weeks, Brad has already made a new friend in Carolyn.
They started to develop a relationship. More than just a working relationship, they developed a romantic relationship.
She really liked him, and it didn't matter that he was on work release.
Carolyn thinks bad boy Bradley is just the ticket out of her humdrum life, and she's about to show just how far she's willing to go to keep this young man around.
They were willing to sacrifice any and everything, including someone else's life.
Carolyn was in love with Bradley. She was under the influence of Bradley Martin.
In Hershey, Pennsylvania, 26-year-old Carolyn King falls head over heels for 20-year-old convict Brad Martin.
Carolyn was a good-looking African-American woman. Brad was a handsome young man. So of course there's those sexual urges.
But with their encounters limited to the workplace, tensions between them are about to reach a breaking point. So Brad puts in a request at the prison for a 4-hour furlough. Based on his good behavior, his request is granted.
Carolyn met Brad at the prison and they went over to a motel that was fairly close.
The encounter is unlike anything either has experienced before.
We need to do this more often.
And it leaves Carolyn wanting more.
The intimacy that Carolyn and Brad had must have been so intense that they immediately formed this bond and needed one another, became dependent on one another. There was just absolutely no way that they were going to give up this relationship.
But there's only one way Carolyn and Brad can be together.
At the motel, they decided that Brad was not going to return to prison.
Carolyn has found what she was looking for, a new man. And she's determined not to let him go.
I can only speculate that it was Carolyn's ideal that he not return.
We don't have money, where are we gonna go?
Brad had a relatively short period of time to go till the completion of his probation violation and his release.
Carolyn and Brad want a fresh start, and to do that, they need money. Brad knows an easy mark, who they should be able to charm into helping them. 74-year-old retired florist, Guy Goodman, who lives in Palmyra, just one town over.
Guy was involved in the prison outreach through his church. That's how he got to meet Brad, and he was really just trying to help him.
Hey, Guy, it's Brad.
Brad tells Guy he's on a furlough and wants to see him. He takes the bait and invites Brad over.
Guy had written several letters to Brad and had gone to visit him at the county prison on a couple of occasions, trying to get Brad back on a correct path.
Carolyn and Brad hitch a ride to Guy's home, just a few miles from the motel.
I believe they shared some coffee. But somewhere during that meeting, the conversation changed from, how are you doing, to, I need money, I need you to help me.
I need some money.
Guy tried to reason with him, tried to get him to go back to the prison.
But by now, Brad has already missed his scheduled return time, making him a fugitive. He and Carolyn know they have to get out of Pennsylvania.
Brad kept asking for money to get out of town. Guy kept insisting that he should return to the prison and get his life straightened out.
And Bradley became angry and picked up a vase and hit him with it.
Guy Goodman is struck over the head with the vase, which knocks him to the floor, opens a pretty large gash and wound in the back of his head.
They took a telephone cord, wrapped it around his neck, tied it to his hands, and then also to his feet.
At the same time, they took a sheet of plastic and wrapped him in the sheet of plastic, then took a bedspread and wrapped that around him, and then a terry cloth robe that was wrapped around the exterior of all of that.
The brutality perpetrated against Guy by these two individuals, in many ways, was a representation as to what they felt was an obstacle that had been put in their way by society, by their past, and they would do anything at this point to keep moving on together in the future, even if it meant eliminating Guy brutally.
Leaving Guy Goodman to suffocate, Carolyn and Brad hunt around the house to get what they came for.
While he was dying, Carolyn and Brad pretty much ransacked the house.
They found his credit card, grabbed some checks out of his checkbook, found his car keys, and left.
In less than an hour, Carolyn and Brad have left Guy for dead, stolen his money and his car, and are on the run. With no destination in mind other than the need to get out of Pennsylvania, they head west.
They took his car and started driving, using his credit card, using his checkbook along the way.
They were shopping sprees, buying purses, cosmetics, just town after town after town.
Even though they're on the run, their desire for one another can't be denied.
They also spent money on women's undergarments. They would just go to stores and buy all of this stuff.
Brad's involved with this slightly older woman, Carolyn, and she has her feminine ways and feminine wiles. And so she knows by buying all this sexy lingerie, this is a way that she could represent herself to the utmost.
10 days later, Guy's body is found by a concerned neighbor, and police are called. Already on the lookout for escaped prisoner Brad Martin, it doesn't take long for detectives to put 2 and 2 together.
Guy had sent letters, and he also did a couple of visits to Brad while he was incarcerated.
We went back to the county, looked and learned that there was written correspondence as well as visits between Guy and Bradley Martin, which gave us a pretty good lead that it was Bradley Martin who may have done this.
Now with Hershey police hot on their heels, the fugitives must stay one step ahead of authorities, and there's no end to the violence they will perpetrate.
They shot her, left her naked, alone, hoping that the coyotes and other animals would dispose of the body.
What Carolyn did for Brad can never be undone.
Love-struck murderers Carolyn King and Bradley Martin are on the lam after killing 74-year-old florist Guy Goodman in Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Still riding on Guy's dime, Carolyn and Brad make it to North Dakota when they decide to head south to Mexico.
It's not a short drive from North Dakota, and this was funded from Guy's credit cards.
But they don't get far, thanks to a vigilant motel clerk in Bismarck, North Dakota, suspicious of the couple who claimed to have no photo ID.
They attempted to check into a motel, and a clerk there had questioned the authenticity of and validity of their utilizing the card and pushed a code into the system which stopped its usage.
The couple then tries to use one of Guy Goodman's checks, only to find out his accounts have been closed. With rapidly diminishing funds, the two are pushed to the point of desperation.
They needed money, they needed it bad, and they weren't afraid to do whatever they had to.
Having killed Guy Goodman, Carolyn and Brad know they have nothing to lose when they spot 59-year-old vacationer Donna Martz.
Donna lived in Devil's Lake, which was a couple of hours away from Bismarck, so she was traveling alone. She was well-dressed. She looked well-to-do.
They saw Donna Martz as another source to finance their escape. They followed her down the hallway.
As Donna arrived at her door and put the key in to unlock it, they came up behind her.
Don't move.
Carolyn pulls a knife on Donna and tells her to do what they say and nobody will get hurt.
Donna Martz had a car, plus she probably also had a fresh supply of money, credit cards, checks, maybe even cash.
They wanted to get to where they wanted to get, start a new life, and live happily ever after. And Donald just happened to be that one person there at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Carolyn and Brad force the petrified Donna into the trunk and take off south toward Mexico, one step closer to their dream of a life together. Over the next 5 days, Carolyn and Brad go on another spending spree, courtesy of Donna Martz. She's still in the trunk, surviving on what little food and water they give her.
They simply kept her alive, bound in the car, so that they could continue to use the resources of her credit cards and her cash.
They forced her to give them her PIN number. They went to the ATM, used her PIN to withdraw cash.
But after days in the trunk, a desperate Donna reaches her breaking point.
So she starts to make noise. And if you're in a parking lot at a mall or any type of store, that should get the attention of somebody. Unfortunately, it just got the attention of Brad and Carolyn.
A furious Carolyn gets behind the wheel and drives out to the middle of nowhere.
Carolyn and Bradley, who had kept Donna alive so they could use her funds, now reach a tipping point with her. She's acting out in the trunk, trying to draw attention to her plight, and she could possibly get them caught. And so at this point, they become enraged with her.
They pull her out of the trunk, they stab her, they make her strip naked,
And Donna's nightmare doesn't end there.
Only people without a conscience can take the life of a person so callously and leave them for the vermin to dispose of their transgressions.
Carolyn King and her boyfriend Bradley Martin take their multi-state crime spree to a whole new level in North Dakota when their hostage Donna Martz tries to get away.
They were very angry, and they sped away from the parking lot with Donna still in the trunk of the car and traveled down the interstate highway, got off, got Donna Martz out of the car, and had her stripped naked.
As Carolyn watches, Brad rapes Donna.
Carolyn, by allowing him to be able to do something so heinous to this woman, in many ways, Carolyn was raping this woman too.
They were able to purchase a gun while they were on the road.
They then placed the gun at her head. They then shot her, left her naked, alone, hoping that the coyotes and other animals would dispose of the body. And they proceeded on their way.
After killing Donna, they get back in her car, heading south to Mexico. Meanwhile, law enforcement across the country is teaming up to catch them.
Donna was reported missing when she didn't arrive home when she was supposed to. So naturally, her family, they became concerned.
Carolyn and Brad don't know it, but by the time they reach Nevada, the FBI agents working the Guy Goodman case have tracked them to the Bismarck Hotel in North Dakota, where Donna disappeared. And with the help of local law enforcement, they connect the dots between the two cases.
You had the local police departments from Pennsylvania collaborating with local police departments in Bismarck, collaborating with the FBI and federal agencies, all on a manhunt to track down Brad and Carolyn. And most of that was because they still figured, hey, if we track them down, there's a chance that Donna may be alive.
The task force calls every police department from the Canadian border to the Mexican border, with orders to find Donna's car. Their canvassing pays off only a few days later, once the couple reaches California.
Outside of San Diego, a California highway patrolman spotted their car.
As he got closer, the car began to speed up.
A desperate Carolyn knows if she and Brad are caught, they can kiss any dream of a life together goodbye.
Carolyn was driving the car, weaving in and out of traffic, going through stop signs and stoplights.
The chase comes to a violent end when Carolyn speeds through an intersection and is T-boned by another car. Carolyn and Brad survive the collision unharmed and are taken into custody. That afternoon, Brad gives up the location of Donna Martz's body, and 2 days later, her remains are found. Under hours of questioning, their stories don't match up.
Brad basically admitted that, yes, he was involved. He and Carolyn had committed these acts together.
But the hot seat doesn't intimidate Carolyn, who claims she was there in the name of love.
Carolyn's focus seemed to have been that she was an unwitting non-participant just along for the ride, and that this was all Bradley Martin who did all of these acts, and that she was just an innocent babe.
Carolyn's apparent narcissism is fed in so many different ways. She leaves her children, she gets involved in these horrific crimes, but then at the end, just to trump all of this, she turns on Brad, the guy that she was controlling, and supposedly had this intense relationship with.
Carolyn and Brad are extradited to Pennsylvania for the murder of Guy Goodman. In jail awaiting her court date, Carolyn King gets some unexpected news.
It was discovered that Carolyn was pregnant.
9 months later, Carolyn gives birth in custody to Brad's son. It's the first and last time she will ever see him. Tried separately for the murder of Guy Goodman, Carolyn and Brad are found guilty, and both are sentenced to death. The pair pleads guilty and receives life in prison for the murder of Donna Martz.
The right thing was the implementation of the death sentence. The families of Guy Goodman and Donna Martz now at least have a final chapter.
Post-conviction, the one-time lovers display noticeably different behavior.
When Bradley Martin was sentenced, there was indications that he did feel remorse for what had happened.
Carolyn expressed no remorse about any of the activities. Her focus seemed to have been that she was an unwitting non-participant.
She walked out of her marriage, she walked away from her kids, looking for adventure in her life, and boy, did she find it.
Many people might think that there was a drastic change from working an honest job to going on a killing spree, but people don't operate in a vacuum. This woman was a ticking time bomb, indicative of someone who was mentally unstable for quite some time, and we saw the consequences of that.
Twenty-year-old Deborah Brown breaks out of her shell when she meets a smooth-talking charmer on the streets of Waukegan, Illinois.
She was hoping to be loved and willing to make such a huge sacrifice for that.
But when her man's twisted perversion sent him running from police, Deborah willingly tags along and helps bring his monstrous fantasies to life.
The horror and the trail of terror that they left behind left a cloud over communities.
Alton and Deborah were as evil as any couple could be.
And later, in Wilmington, Delaware, 17-year-old Shakira Wanham thinks her days of being used and abused are over when she meets handsome bachelor Stephen Martin.
He would treat her like a queen. She wanted it to last.
Only to find herself pulled into a world more dangerous than she could ever imagine.
They got her high and put a gun in her purse, and he said, "I need money."
She closed her eyes, the next thing you know, the gun was going off because she wanted to hold on to them.
Growing up in the quiet suburbs of Waukegan, Illinois, young Deborah Brown certainly didn't seem marked for notoriety.
What we know about Deborah is that she was a very shy young woman growing up. Her mom characterized her as a good girl.
2 years removed from high school, the sweet and unassuming Deborah still lives at home, along with her 10 siblings.
This was a very young woman who came from a very large family, a lot of kids. And when you have so many siblings, it's just so easy to get lost in the sauce.
But Deborah's humdrum world is spun upside down one fall day when she meets neighborhood ladies' man, Alton Coleman.
Alton Coleman was charming. He was very easy to talk to. He could carry on a conversation, and people just trusted him.
Deborah is instantly taken with Alton's charismatic personality. The self-described professional poker player seems to hypnotize her.
I think she's like any other young woman who meets a young man and who sees in him what she thinks that she's been wanting all her life.
Romance quickly blossoms between the two, and after a few weeks of dating, Alton asks Deborah to live with him in the house he shares with his grandmother. But Alton's offer comes with an interesting string attached, a job in the home that keeps her removed from the outside world.
She was paid $25 a month to basically be a nurse's aide to Alton's grandmother.
A place in Alton's life is worth its weight in gold.
She would cook, clean, and do chores around the house.
It gave her a sense of belonging, and I think that's why Deborah helped him.
This was probably the first person that she felt actually needed her.
For the next few months, Deborah lives a charmed life under Alton's spell. Until one day when Alton receives a court summons and reveals to Deborah a shocking secret.
Alton, hey, baby, what is this?
He was awaiting trial on a sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl.
There were 6 different sexual violent offenses on record that Alton was engaged in prior to her meeting him.
Don't worry about it, we good.
It was well known in the neighborhood that Alton grew up that his mother was a prostitute, and she would often engage in sex with her Johns in front of this young boy.
Despite Alton's predatory past, Deborah dutifully stands by her man when he asks her to accompany him to court the following week.
Deborah knew that he was going to court on a rape charge. It would be the normal thing to do if the man that you loved had committed rapes of very young girls, that you would leave. But in Deborah's case, she did not.
The night before his scheduled court appearance, Alton is nowhere to be found. And when Alton finally shows up the next morning,
He told her he had done something wrong that night.
She asked him what it was, and he wouldn't tell her.
after dropping the subject, an hour later, Deborah stands by Alton as he makes a pre-trial plea of not guilty to the rape charge.
It definitely was not enough to make her walk away.
Alton returns home with Deborah only to vanish once again. Left to care for his grandmother, Deborah gets a surprise visit. Law enforcement are looking for Alton Coleman, their prime suspect in the disappearance of 9-year-old Vernita Wheat. 6 weeks earlier, Alton had befriended the young girl's mother, Adrian, in nearby Kenosha.
He was riding a bicycle through the alley. He smiled at her, they struck up a conversation, and over the next month, he would come from Waukegan to Kenosha to visit her.
It appears that having a home life with Deborah hasn't stopped Alton from playing the field.
Vernita's mother was single. He was helpful, he ran errands for him, and he was just generally being nice to her and Vernita.
He used an alias and gained her trust by starting to date her. She believed that it was okay for Vernita to be with him and felt safe with that.
Then, 6 weeks later, on the night before his court date, Alton asked Adrian if he could take little Vernita out for some fun. She had no idea he had a history of sexual violence against children.
She gave Alton permission to take Vernita to a carnival, and she never came home.
Less than 24 hours after Vernita is reported missing, her mother goes to the police station in Waukegan to look at photos of known sex offenders. She immediately picks out Alton's mugshot from the lineup.
I think we all feared that she had been killed.
Later that morning, investigators show up at Deborah's door.
She provided us a statement that Alton had told her he had done something wrong.
She was candid, and she openly talked about it.
Believing they've gotten all they can from Deborah, the authorities leave, with the promise of returning to talk to her more at a later date. But law enforcement will never get that chance, because Alton will soon return to pick up something valuable he left behind. Deborah.
A woman with her wits about her would say, oh my goodness, there's something wrong here, and leave. But in her case, she still hoped that she would have a happy life with him.
As she follows Alton in what she hopes will be a path to a new life together, Deborah will prove the lengths that she's willing to go for her man.
There's no way that she could imagine what he was capable of and what she was capable of.
50 miles north of Chicago, in the town of Waukegan, Illinois, 20-year-old Deborah Brown has stood by her man of 10 months, 28-year-old sexual predator, Alton Coleman.
When he met Deborah, he was waiting trial on a sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl.
There was something in Alton that she connected with that made her decide that it was worth being with him.
But after being named the prime suspect in the disappearance of 9-year-old Vernita Wheat, Alton goes on the run. Less than 48 hours after taking off, Alton calls Deborah.
Hey, baby.
He has stolen a car and is about to leave town.
What?
And he wants Deborah to go with him.
Alton was able to convince Deborah that he needed her to get away from the police. I think it was easier for Alton to escape capture by having a female with him.
She compartmentalizes his very dangerous character so that she can continue to love him and be with him.
The two hit the road and head south, trying to keep one step ahead of the law.
She had not traveled much or been out of her local area. But as long as she had him, I think she was okay with being in a new place.
But law enforcement is hot on their trail.
This became a nationwide manhunt, even to the point that the FBI placed Alton on a special most wanted list.
After a week on the run, the fugitive couple abandons their stolen vehicle in Gary, Indiana, 72 miles south of Waukegan. But they can't outrun Alton's twisted compulsion when he sees two little girls walking alone.
Alton asked Deborah to help him do something wrong. And then he told her to tell the little girls that she had some clothes for them.
Having Deborah approach them first reduced the level of suspicion for the girls.
Deborah approaches 7-year-old Tamika and 9-year-old Annie.
Deborah said to the little girls, "I have some clothes for you. Would you like them?" And they said yes. And so then they walked a little ways toward a park. And then all of a sudden, Alton grabbed the one little girl, tore her clothes off, and told Deborah to hold the other little girl.
Deborah follows her man's orders.
With the fabric from the shirt, they created ties so that they can gag the girls and tie the girls up.
Alton and Deborah force the girls to perform unspeakable acts on them before savagely assaulting the 9-year-old Annie.
Alton raped Annie, strangled her, and left her there. And then he asked Deborah to hold the feet of the little girl. Then he strangled her too. And then they just walked away.
After eagerly obeying her man's every command, Deborah has crossed an unforgivable line. She has become a sexual predator and child killer.
The fact that Deborah helped hold their legs down while he did this says to me that at this point she had completely bought into him. Alton was not holding a gun to Deborah's head.
It is a true partnership. And now, finally, she can say she is a special person. She stands out. And she is an equal to this man who she really loves.
Miraculously, Annie survives the brutal assault and is found by a passerby later that day. She directs him to 7-year-old Tamika's body. By now, every law enforcement agency in Indiana is aware of the fugitive couple. When authorities show Annie their photos, she is able to identify Alton from his mugshot. Meanwhile, Deborah and Alton are desperate to stay one step ahead of the law.
They were on the run, and they needed money, they needed transportation.
One day after their attack on the little girls, Deborah and Alton are still in Gary, looking for a vehicle to steal to get them out of the city. That's when they spot 25-year-old Donna Williams by her car.
The thing is, my man...
Alton and Deborah befriended Donna under the guise of wanting to be closer to God, and they used Donna's faith to lure her.
Excited to have made new friends, Donna offers Deborah and Alton a ride to a church function. Once in the car, Alton and Deborah strike. Deborah takes control of the wheel, allowing Alton to ruthlessly force himself on Donna.
Hurry up!
The longer this killing spree goes on, the more invincible Deborah and Alton are feeling. And as part of that, the more addicted they are to this very horrific behavior.
After Alton rapes her, he wraps his hands around Donna's neck and watches as the life is suffocated out of her.
The ability to be even more gruesome and violent translates into excitement. It translates into kind of getting off on what she was doing.
As they make their way out of town in Donna's car, the pair dump her lifeless body near an abandoned building. Despite the nationwide manhunt, Deborah and Alton managed to stay under the radar and travel undetected for the next 40 days.
They stole many, many cars along the way. They would always take the license plate off before they abandoned them. So it'd take a while for the police to trace them.
The longer the two are on the loose, the bigger the body count.
I think after they had killed several people that they were enjoying the Bonnie and Clyde type murder spree that they were going on.
For Deborah and Alton, getting involved in these grisly murders and rapes became sort of like the new normal for them. They needed to step up the game in order to feel that satisfaction and pleasure. They needed more of that thrill killing in order to really feel good.
Later that summer in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the devastating fate of 9-year-old Vernita Wheat finally comes to light.
Vernita Wheat's body was discovered in the abandoned building about 3 weeks after we last knew of Alton and Deborah Brown's location.
And in her pocket was the torn ticket for the carnival, identifying it back to the carnival she had attended.
The cause of death was strangulation.
When you have to handle the crime scene of a young child, is probably the worst thing you could ever do as a police officer.
Investigators find Alton's fingerprints on items near Vernita's body. But as evil as Alton was on his own, authorities know now he's even more dangerous with his willing accomplice at his side.
I have to believe that at that time, Deborah was actually enjoying what was happening.
Deborah Brown could have gotten away at any time she wanted to.
But instead, she joins Alton as they ride through a peaceful suburb in Ohio where their savagery sees no bounds.
It was really unimaginable, the level of horror that the two of them were able to inflict.
And later in Wilmington, Delaware, 17-year-old Shakira Wanham puts herself in a deadly situation for the love of an older man.
Shakira's intentions was to rob someone. She didn't mean to shoot someone. Shooting a gun was the last thing Shakira ever dreamed of doing.
She was afraid that something would happen to her or her family if she did not do what she was told to do.
Deborah Brown and Alton Coleman are on a rape and murder spree across the Midwest. As eyewitness accounts and mounting evidence put to rest any illusion that Deborah is anything but a willing participant.
Prior to meeting Alton, you see no signal or no indication of any behavior anywhere close to what you see Deborah performing at this point. She was all in, no question about it.
Alton has all of his perverse, murderous, and sexual needs met, while Deborah is able to fill a very special role.
After almost 7 weeks on the run, Deborah and Alton find themselves low on funds as they prowl through a suburb in Ohio when they see a for sale sign for a camper. The owners, 50-year-old Harry Walters, and his wife, 45-year-old Marlene, welcome Deborah and Alton inside.
When they stepped inside the home, the Walters were pretty excited for having a potential buyer. I'm sure they were very hospitable.
Alton and Deborah prepare to pounce.
That's very cool.
Alton asked him about a candlestick holder that was next to the fireplace. Apparently it was relatively unique. Alton crashed it over Harry's head and hit him several times, knocked him out.
As Alton continues to unleash his rage on Harry, Deborah follows his lead, picks up the candlestick, and uses it to beat Marlene to death.
Physiologically, when we look at what was going on with them, with any kind of addiction, in this case an addiction to murder, mayhem, and rape, certain neurotransmitters are released. Shoot or kill or rape another person. That was good. Do it again.
Marlene is dead. Harry is alive, but badly beaten.
Alton and Deborah ransacks the home, takes the jewelry and the car.
Alton and Deborah are on the move. They begin driving north toward Waukegan, Illinois.
They abandoned that car and got on the train. They got off the train in Evanston, Illinois.
Evanston lies just 30 miles south of Waukegan and is where Alton grew up.
This is where all their resources were. They go back to a place that is familiar, that feels like home, in order to build themselves back up, have some level of comfort, and then go back out into the world and create more mayhem.
But what Alton failed to plan is what to do if they were caught. A move that will prove costly.
Alton was crossing the street there in Evanston, and a guy that he went to high school with in Waukegan recognized him and called the local police.
Police are dispatched to the area, but the two are gone. Then they're spotted in a nearby park. Rather than go out guns blazing, Deborah follows Alton's lead as he helplessly throws his hands up.
By the time that they were arrested, that they were just tired. They put up no resistance.
The couple's arrest brings an end to their reign of terror. During their 7-week crime spree across 3 states, Deborah and Alton are suspected of killing 8 people.
The amount of death and destruction that Alton and Deborah left behind in 7 weeks is unbelievable. 8 murders, 7 rapes, 15 individuals that they've either robbed or terrified or injured in some way.
So this is really fascinating when we look back at Deborah's life. Here's a young woman growing up in a family. There's absolutely no history of violence that she's perpetrated in any way, but yet when she meets Alton, she makes this flip and becomes a serial killer with absolutely no remorse.
But prosecutors choose their cases wisely and only charge the duo with the crimes for which they will be sentenced to death. No other charges are brought against them. In Indiana, both Alton and Deborah are sentenced to death for the murder of 7-year-old Tamika Turks. In Ohio, the couple is sentenced to death for killing Marlene Walters. Through it all, Deborah has Alton's back to the bitter end.
Deborah showed no remorse towards any of the victims. The only person that she cared about was Alton. She testified in the penalty phase of his trial that she had done all the murders and he hadn't done any.
When we see couples involved in crime and they get caught at the end of their spree, quite often they turn on one another. The foundation of that love was not strong to begin with. But Deborah wants to make sure that nothing happens to Alton. And I think this speaks purely of the fact that she loved him more than she loved herself.
Alton is extradited to Illinois, where he is convicted and sentenced to death for the murder of 9-year-old Vernita Wheat. After serving 17 years in prison, Alton Coleman was put to death for his crimes. Willing to take the fall for her man, Deborah Brown took her devotion to the extreme. In Wilmington, Delaware, Shakira Wanham will execute a devious plan to keep her beloved living the high life. Growing up poor in the worst part of the city, Shakira Wanham's childhood was far from idyllic.
Shakira was born when I was 17 and a half. Shakira's father, he wasn't a good provider. I was the one that was working.
He was an alcoholic. He had serious mental health issues. In fact, he was bipolar.
Shakira's father's volatile personality makes her home life extremely unstable.
Shakira's father was a violent man, and he was abusive towards her mother.
When she see that he would put his hands on me, Shakira would try to pick up something and hit him to protect me.
She witnessed abuse all the time when she was a child.
One such event, on New Year's Eve, proves to be a defining moment in 5-year-old Shakira's life.
Shakira's father came in the house after having a hard night of drinking. and started arguing with me about something.
The father goes into the kitchen, comes back with a steak knife, and goes after her.
And he stabbed me in the back. Then he pulled it out and came at my heart and then came at my throat. And Shakira was standing right next to me watching everything happen.
Despite a punctured lung, Deneen survives the attack. She returns home 2 days later, but will need the next 8 months to heal. The incident is burned into Shakira's psyche, and it will pave the way for all of her male relationships to come.
When we see a child who's exposed to violence, then that violence becomes part of their lives. Either they choose someone who's very violent in order to live with later on in life, or they perpetrate that violence.
Get off of me! Get off of me!
She was unprepared for what was about to occur.
If it wasn't for love, Shakira would have never committed this act.
At 5 years old, Shakira Wanham witnesses her father brutally attack her mother, Deneen, with a knife. After 8 months of recovery at home, Deneen survives and cuts him out of their life for good. With her dad out of the picture, Shakira blossoms.
She did well in school. She had good grades. She got A's and B's.
Shakira was very smart. She wanted to be an obstetrician or gynecologist. Shakira had a lot of dreams.
But Shakira's dreams are quickly interrupted. Over the next 10 years, she watches helplessly as her mother is abused by a string of men. Shakira starts looking for an escape.
She was 11 years old when she started running away from her house. She would pack her clothes and sneak out at night when her mom was asleep.
She would sneak out windows. She would sneak out fire escapes. She always managed to get out.
Shakira's late-night excursions expose her to a dark world on the streets.
She would meet up with boys. They'd give her drugs and alcohol, and she would have sex with them.
Shakira certainly wasn't able to make rational decisions about life, and certainly she was at risk to these predator type of individuals who saw her as being very vulnerable.
By the time Shakira is 17, she has been living on and off the streets for a number of years and is addicted to drugs. Deneen tries to get her daughter help and sends her to various drug treatment programs.
Shakira spent 3/4 of her life in treatment centers because I was trying to find out what was going on with her. She did succeed in those treatment centers, but when she came home a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, she would do the same thing.
But all of that changes when 23-year-old charmer Stephen Martin sets his sights on Shakira.
Shakira saw Stephen on the street, and somehow they ended up talking.
Within days, they're inseparable. Unlike all other men in her life, Stephen showers her with affection.
She had a good time with him. He treated her like she wanted to be treated.
I think Shakira felt as though she had someone in her life that is finally showing her some attention, and she just gravitated towards it.
Stephen is a well-known drug dealer, but to Shakira, he acts like nothing but a prince. So when he asks her to move in with him just 2 months after they meet, Shakira thinks she's finally found everything she's wanted.
He would run her bath, water, fix food for her. She didn't think a guy could treat her that way. And she was gonna do everything she could not to let it go.
But that feeling doesn't last. Not long after the two start playing house, Shakira learns that her guardian angel is actually a devil in disguise. All the money Stephen makes from dealing has one purpose: to support his addiction to a street drug called Wet.
Wet is a drug concoction where you take a regular cigarette and dip it in PCP. So individuals, sometimes they become very, very violent. At other times, they even become psychotic.
Suddenly, the affection that Shakira has been desperately craving is now coming at a much steeper price than she ever imagined.
He became abusive. There was times that he would ask her to do something, and when she didn't want to or she couldn't, he would start hitting her.
Shakira stayed in this very abusive relationship with Steven because in many ways she wanted that old Steven, the one who made her feel very special, and she held out hope against hope that she could bring that back in him.
She wanted to do everything she possibly could to please this person.
When Shakira met Steven, she had no idea that she would end up in jail.
17-year-old Shakira Wanham is 4 months into a relationship with 23-year-old Steve Martin, a street hustler who's addicted to drugs.
Steven, he would beat her up. He would tell her, do this, do that. You know, he would verbally abuse her.
She was afraid that something would happen to her or her family if she did not do what she was told to do.
Steven's dramatic personality change is bad enough, but things are about to get even worse.
You'll learn today. Smoke it.
4 months into their relationship, Steven is high on wet and craving more.
Steven said, I need money. I need you to rob somebody. Because, you know, you're young. You wouldn't get into as much trouble as I would if I was to do it.
He took the gun that he carried with him all the time and wiped his prints off of it, handed it to her, and said, I want you to go get me some money.
Steven taught her how to use the gun and said, don't ever let anyone take the gun from you because they'll take it and use it on you. She was just very, very afraid, and she just wanted to bring something back to him so that she wouldn't get beat up again.
Later that night, Shakira contacts the easiest target she can think of. A local street pharmacist named Johnny Jackson.
He was a drug dealer, and so she assumed he would have money on him.
Shakira tells Johnny she's looking to score some drugs, and he agrees to pick her up in a nearby neighborhood.
Johnny had gotten a ride from a woman named Alicia, who had brought her 4-year-old son, who was sitting in the back in a car seat.
Shakira climbs into the car.
Shakira goes forward with the plan, even though there's a young child in the back of the car. This really shows how committed that she is to Steven. For a lot of other people, this would have been a game changer. But for Shakira, she knew that she had to do this in order to hold on to the love of this man.
They went to another house for the drug transaction, and then they got on the freeway and headed out. There was music on, which was very loud, and both Alicia and Johnny were singing.
Clutching the gun in her purse, Shakira knows it's either now or never. She pulls out the gun and tells Alicia to stop the car.
And said, give me your money. And Johnny said, what?
Shut up, Johnny. Just give me your money. I know you got cash on you.
But Johnny's not about to let a 17-year-old get the jump on him.
He went to reach for the gun.
That's when it clicked in her mind what Steven was teaching her. Don't ever let someone take the gun from you because they'll take it and use it on you. She was afraid.
It was a very surreal thing for her. She closed her eyes. The next thing you know, the gun was going off.
When she opened her eyes, she saw blood.
She saw Johnny slumped over.
Johnny is dead. His friend Alicia has been shot in the arm, but Alicia's 4-year-old son makes it through the blasts unharmed.
Shakira was shocked because she didn't mean to kill anyone.
Shakira told Alicia to take her son and go, and they did.
Shakira fights her instinct to run. She knows she can't leave without getting what Steven wants.
Shakira then went through his pockets, taking $50 and his cell phone.
She was obviously bloody, very scared, very panicky, crying, hysterical.
Shakira thought she was going to get more than $50 from him. She was concerned because everything went bad.
Shakira must have felt awful, if not downright foolish, because she ended up killing this man for just a few dollars.
A panicked Shakira knows she has to get as far away from the tragic scene as she can.
She ended up hitchhiking and getting dropped off at a gas station by Stephen's home. And she ran to the home from there and told Stephen what happened.
There was a big argument between the two.
He said, the only thing I wanted you to do was just rob somebody and bring me some money.
He was thinking he's gonna get me, he's gonna abuse me, he's gonna hit me.
But there's no time for Stephen to lash out. When Shakira tells him that she let Alicia and her young son go, Stephen knows it's only a matter of time before police track Shakira down. And he doesn't want to be anywhere near Wilmington when they do. So Stephen jumps into action.
He had her take her clothes because they had blood on them and put them in a bag and poured bleach on it. Then drove to New Jersey and they burned her clothes.
Shakira might have felt that Stephen was helping hide the evidence because he still loved her on some level, but the reality may simply be that he provided the murder weapon and was simply covering his own tracks.
Next, Stephen and Shakira flee. 3 hours later, the emotionally exhausted couple arrive at the home of a friend of Stephen's in New Jersey, where they fall asleep. But when Shakira wakes up in the morning, Stephen is gone.
It was a pure shock for her. And I think part of that was the fear of, how am I going to deal with this situation without him? He's always told me what to do. How am I going to get through this?
And there's only one person Shakira can truly trust, her mom, who she hasn't spoken to in 6 months.
When I got a phone call about 1 in the morning, obviously I was happy to hear from her. And she said, well, Mom, I'm gonna come home. And I said, well, good, well, come on home.
Shakira hitchhikes from New Jersey back to her mom's house in Wilmington.
She was very frail, eyes sunken in, and just very, very tiny. I gave her a hug, and she said, Mom, I'm just tired. And then she laid down in her room and went to sleep.
5 hours later, Deneen is awakened by the sound of police pounding on the door.
We're looking for Shakira.
The detective asked me, was my daughter home? And at that point is when I went to look for her. I didn't see her at all in the home. I didn't know where Shakira was at that point. I didn't know.
Shakira may be missing, but her secret is about to see the cold light of day.
When I found out everything that happened, and I almost passed out.
17-year-old Shakira Wanham lands on her mother's doorstep after committing a robbery for her man, Stephen Martin, that ends in murder. 5 hours later, police come looking for Shakira.
I go open the door, and it's the police, and I'm shocked. They said, is your daughter Shakira at home? And I said, she was here, yes.
Shakira!
When I went to look for her, I didn't see my daughter.
Deneen demands to know what police want with Shakira. When she is told her daughter is wanted for murder, Deneen is floored.
Check the premise.
This tore my heart. This ripped my heart out. That's my firstborn.
Armed with a search warrant, the officers hunt through every room, but find no sign of Shakira. Eventually, they find her huddled in an attic corner.
Well, one officer said, here she is. They lifted her up and handcuffed her.
Police haul Shakira away for questioning, where she gives up everything to police, including the man who put her up to it.
She said Stephen asked Shakira to rob for him after giving her some drugs. If she didn't do what he wanted her to do, he would beat her again.
And they went to his home and found ammunition. And that's when they found him and arrested him.
Stephen admits to giving Shakira a gun, but vehemently denies having anything to do with the murder. He is arrested and convicted of a weapons-related violation, but faces no charges in the murder of Johnny Jackson. Stephen is sentenced and serves only 2 years in prison.
This was something that was an emotional assault to her because after all, she was just following his commands and trying to help him get money so that he can do drugs. Shakira committed this murder in order to please Stephen.
At the end of the day, it was Shakira's fault that Johnny Jackson lost his life. And Shakira knows that.
A little over a year later, Shakira faces a jury for her crimes, and she tells them that she's remorseful for her actions.
During trial, Shakira stated that she wished she could change places with Johnny. She feels very, very bad about what happened.
She expressed sorrow for the family and the people she'd hurt.
Shakira is convicted of 1 count of murder in the first degree and receives life in prison plus 17 years. On appeal, Shakira's lawyers argue against her conviction, citing her traumatic upbringing and age as mitigating factors. She is resentenced to 21 years.
She, fortunately, will have a life when she gets out of jail because she was so young. So she'll be able to make her way back into society.
Today, Shakira has changed from the naive teen who killed in the name of love to a mature woman with a message.
The main thing that Shakira wants now is for people to learn from her mistake. Shakira is now one of the ones running the Scared Straight program.
She wanted to participate because she wanted to help other girls or women who may be in the same situation that she was in. She thinks that by telling her story, it might help deter others from staying in abusive relationships.
Jessica Delancey and her new man are hot for each other in sunny Jacksonville, Florida.
He brought excitement to her life.
But Jessica will pay the ultimate price for getting involved with a man who plays dirty.
She accepted the criminal activities as a way of life to keep up the financial rewards that came with it.
Jessica would do anything to help her man get what was rightfully his.
And later in the Windy City, Lisa Toney is starved for attention when she takes up with a sexy stranger.
He had this way of being able to zero in on a woman to get whatever it was that he wanted.
And she'll do anything to give her new man what he wants.
He was a fatal attraction.
Lisa was going to be his next victim.
For as long as she can remember, Jessica Delancey of Pickettville, Georgia, has only known what it's like to feel unwanted and alone.
She was abandoned by her mother. Jessica's father was abusive, and he was an alcoholic.
Jessica's grandmother is left to care for her, but pays little attention to her needs.
She had no home life whatsoever. There was no one there to help direct her.
There wasn't a lot of things in her environment that could reinforce her in a positive way.
Despite her circumstances, Jessica still holds out hope that one day she'll get far away from Pickettville.
Daydreaming is certainly a coping mechanism because she felt neglected and abandoned. And for Jessica, that daydream, that fantasy, the constant fantasy she had in her mind was to be wanted and to be loved.
Fresh out of high school, 17-year-old Jessica marries the first man who catches her eye. He whisks her away to Jacksonville, 10 miles down the road.
She's desperately looking for somebody to love and accept her. He didn't treat her very well. Not long after that, he left her with a son to take care of on her own.
A year after leaving home, Jessica is already looking for a fresh start. She and her son move in with a friend who works as an exotic dancer, and Jessica signs up for classes at the local community college.
She was trying to better herself by getting an education. She was going to school to be a certified nursing assistant, but she had some difficulties to pay for those education programs.
With her bills piling up, Jessica's new roommate suggests a way to fix her money problems.
She had no real way of making a living. Her friend told Jessica the fastest way you can make this cash is to come and work at the strip club.
Jessica takes her friend's advice and makes her way to the dance floor.
She worked as an exotic dancer at one of the local clubs here.
She was an attractive girl. She did very well financially. She walks away in the evening and has cash in her pocket that she can now spend freely.
Jessica drops out of school to focus full-time on making money at the club.
Jessica was like a lot of other young ladies who are simply looking to escape circumstances that are already dismal. They want to find a better life, but they don't have a real plan. They haven't really thought about the resources they have at hand or resources that are available to them.
But there are drawbacks that come with her new lifestyle that affect her now 2-year-old child.
Between taking care of her son and stripping, that was a very, very tough balancing act for her.
Jessica would oftentimes leave her son for long periods of time. When she was dancing, she relied heavily on other family members to assist her.
When she ended up having her own child at a very young age, she repeated that same behavior, what she was taught, to be neglectful and to abandon. And therefore, she did the same to her child by passing the care of that child on to her family.
The last thing Jessica expects to find, stripping, is love. But that's exactly what happens when, a month into her new job, she spies 19-year-old drug dealer Derek Goldson.
Derek took a fancy to Jessica and they struck up conversation.
They exchanged phone numbers at night. And Jessica and Derek, from then on out, they started a relationship.
And it isn't long before the only place Jessica wants to be is by the side of her new man.
Derek had large amounts of cash because of his involvement in the drug trade.
The combination of being a decent-looking guy and having substantially more money than she was ever earning as an exotic dancer, it was almost too much to resist.
Jessica doesn't care where the money comes from, as long as Derek is spending it on her.
He slipped a wad of cash in her G-string, and he made her feel good about herself.
It's really not surprising that she would date someone who had a very severe criminal occupation, a drug dealer, and he took care of her financially. This fed into that fantasy she always had of being taken care of in every way possible. So his lifestyle, for her, didn't even matter.
Just 5 days after meeting Derek, Jessica packs up her 4-year-old son and moves in with him. But she quickly learns that her new relationship comes at a price.
Not long after Jessica realized that he was a very controlling person. He told her that she had to stop working at the strip club. She's his woman. He doesn't want other men looking at her.
Derek promised to support her and her son, so she quit her job as a dancer.
Like I said, I'm taking care of you. I'm your daddy now. Since your father don't care.
By Derek offering to take care of Jessica, this was the beginning of a grooming that we see quite often happens. In many ways, this is what she wanted. The fantasy come true. The knight in shining armor riding in and taking care of her. But this was really a pure manipulation, a grooming by Derek.
Derek is not only a control freak, he's also a drug dealer who's addicted to his own product.
Whenever Derek would use cocaine, he would have a short temper and he would become very volatile. On multiple occasions, he would blacken her eye or bloody her lip.
She didn't try to get out of that situation because at that point, him taking care of her and her son, she probably saw that as a necessary evil.
By Jessica growing up in a home where her father was missing, the affection of a father, the role modeling of a father as to what a relationship should be, in this case between a man and a woman, Jessica didn't know what a healthy relationship was.
Despite Derek's abusive behavior, Jessica stays in the relationship, and within a few months, she finds herself in a new line of work.
Derek had Jessica working for him. She would frequently drive him to places to pick up drugs and to drop off drugs. The main person that Jessica and Derek dealt with was a guy by the name of Reggie.
Reggie acts as Derek's main supplier, and their business relationship seems to run smoothly, until the night that Reggie sells Derek a batch of bad crack cocaine.
Derek was cooking up the substance on the stove, and the product turned into mush. So he says, well, I can't go out and sell this. This turned into a $1,000 loss.
He became very irate. He was saying that he was going to go over and force Reggie to make this thing right.
I'm gonna get his ass. We're gonna get his ass.
As a drug dealer, your reputation is on the line. You have to do something extreme to make the person pay for it.
Derek will not rest until he can recoup his cash. He comes up with a plan to steal his money back from Reggie, and Jessica is eager to help him.
Jessica's looking at this as, we're gonna do anything we need to do to get this money.
You with it?
Yeah, come on, of course. Let's do it. Let's go.
She's saying, this is my man and I'm gonna do what I need to do to keep it all good with him.
The couple decides to disguise their appearance in order to take Reggie by surprise.
So at that point, they really take on this Bonnie and Clyde persona. Derek put on a black knit cap over his face, and Jessica donned a blonde wig.
Then they drive to Reggie's house, and while they wait outside for him to show up, Derek works out one last detail with Jessica.
Derek had a AK-47. He provided Jessica with a .45 caliber handgun.
This is a guy she's known for 4 months. He's now asking her to commit a crime.
She could have withdrawn it at that point. She could have said, no, don't give me that gun. I don't want to do this.
Derek says, Jessica, this gun is for your protection. That's when it really becomes all real to Jessica. She takes the gun.
It's quite obvious that Jessica has the same mind frame at this point as Derek. She was willing to commit murder in order to please him, but to also let him know that she was an equal partner in their crime.
And when Reggie shows, Jessica continues to follow Derek's lead.
At that point, he was confronted by Derek and Jessica at gunpoint, and that he forced him inside of the house.
Once inside, they realize Reggie doesn't live alone. He has a family.
She realized that there's Reggie's wife in there, Kyoto.
And their niece, who was 10 years old. I think Jessica was extremely surprised to see anybody except perhaps Reggie's wife inside the house.
Where's the money? It's in the back, man.
Despite her shock, Jessica keeps her gun aimed at Reggie's family as she stands by her man, ready to take his orders.
You would think that Jessica, being a mother herself, her motherly instincts would kick in, but apparently Derek's hold over Jessica was a lot more stronger.
After knowing 19-year-old Derek Goldson for just 4 months in Jacksonville, Florida, 21-year-old Jessica Delancey is ready to prove her love to him. After Derek's supplier Reggie sells him a bad batch of cocaine, Jessica joins Derek on a mission to steal back his money.
Let's go, babe.
Derek and Jessica forced Reggie into the home. She just instinctively followed Derek's lead.
Reggie's wife, Kyoto, and his 10-year-old niece are in the living room. Despite the presence of a child, Jessica and Derek demand that Reggie give them their money.
We just want the money. That's all we want.
Reggie indicated that the money was in the bedroom, in a closet. Jessica went to look for it while Derek kept Reggie and Kyoto in the living room.
While Jessica is searching for the drugs and money, she hears Derek cry out to her. When she runs back in, she sees a struggle ensuing between Reggie and Derek. They're fighting over the gun.
Derek is trying to give Jessica commands about what to do as he's wrestling with Reggie. Jessica manages to shoot Reggie once in the back.
As Reggie fell to the floor, Derek then took control of the rifle and then executed him.
Jessica and Derek are clearly working as a team. She's willing to do anything to fortify their relationship.
What do we do now?
I don't know.
While the killers are distracted, Kyoto tries to escape.
She turned and fired multiple shots at Kyoto as she was fleeing from that home.
Despite Jessica's attempt to shoot her, Kyoto manages to get away.
Derek and Jessica ran out the front door of the home and back to the truck. They knew at that point in time, based upon the screaming and the gunshots, that the police were going to be on the way.
He ordered Jessica to grab the wheel in the drive, to actually be the getaway driver.
The pair start to flee the scene.
Derek begins to question Jessica about Kyoto, and he said, "Did you kill her?" And she said, "I don't know." At this point, she's flustered. She doesn't really know what happened, but she did shoot at her.
Suddenly, Derek spots something out of the corner of his eye.
As they were pulling off, Derek saw someone hiding underneath a tree off to the left of the road.
He yelled at Jessica to stop. She slammed on the brakes.
Derek wants to make sure there are no loose ends.
Derek got out to confront Kyoto, who then begged for her life and asked him why he was doing this.
Derek raised up the AK-47, executed Kyoto.
At this point, you have Jessica, who's seen her boyfriend murder 2 people. You would think that Jessica would be feeling like, my boyfriend is a lot more dangerous than I figured. I'm gonna take off. But she didn't do that.
After she had witnessed Derek killing 2 people, there are a lot of things going on in her mind, but leaving him was not one of them.
Now partners in 2 cold-blooded murders, Jessica and Derek flee the scene. The money they came to get, forgotten.
The result of this entire affair is that it was all for naught. They took nothing except 2 lives, and that's a tragedy.
She could have opted to stop participating. For her, there was just no turning back.
For the next 3 weeks, Derek and Jessica hole up in their apartment, hoping everything will blow over.
Derek continued to tell her, well, you can't tell anybody about this.
Derek and Jessica believed that the only witnesses that could identify them were the 2 individuals that were killed. Jessica and Derek thought they got away with murder.
What they don't realize is that when they drove away from Reggie's apartment, a crucial witness emerged from her hiding spot.
And only a matter of feet away, sort of concealed under the tree in the bushes, was the niece.
She witnessed all of these things that happened.
It's difficult to imagine the impact on a 10-year-old child witnessing an execution, particularly of your aunt or a relative, but of anyone. That's an experience that's going to live with that young girl all of her life.
After running to a neighbor's house for safety, Reggie's niece calls the police.
She gave a very detailed description of the events from the very beginning to the end.
Reggie's niece tells the police the man was wearing a mask, but she's sure that she'd recognize the woman if she saw her again.
She had a very lucid and very excellent memory for the features, and it resulted in a very good sketch and likeness.
That just shows you that sometimes trauma can make people remember things. It stays in their mind, and it becomes very vivid to some people.
As investigators hunt for Jessica, Derek's pulled over in a traffic stop, and detectives run his plates. He's wanted on an outstanding warrant from a domestic dispute he had with a former girlfriend. He's immediately taken into custody.
Now, at this point, the police don't know that Derek is a guy they're looking for. He calls Jessica and asks her to go to his best friend's Garrett house to get this bail money for him.
When Jessica arrives at Garrett's house to collect the money, she's unprepared for who she'll meet there.
Garrett was actually dating the sister of Kyoto Williams.
When she goes to the house, there are friends of Kyoto who are going to her funeral.
And one guest in particular catches Jessica by surprise, Reggie's niece. And later, in Chicago, Lisa Tony leaves her husband for another man, with explosive results.
She wanted him dead, and sooner the better.
He was like a shadow moving through the night. I mean, he could have walked up to him and blew his brains out, but he did not. He devised what he considered a perfect crime by sending him a package with a bomb in it.
Lisa would had her life turned upside down by a master of manipulation.
Jessica Delancey and her boyfriend Derek Goldson believe they've gotten away with a double murder after they shot and killed their drug supplier Reggie and his wife Kyoto over a deal gone bad. But when Derek gets thrown in jail on an unrelated charge, their quest for money will be their undoing.
Derek calls up Jessica and tells her to go to his best friend Garrett's house to get the money that he needs.
Garrett was actually dating the sister of Kyoto Williams. Jessica went over. Garrett was getting ready to go to a memorial for Kyoto Williams.
You have all of these people here who were preparing to go to Kyoto's funeral. Among those, a 10-year-old niece who saw her aunt was murdered.
The niece ran out of the living room into one of the back bedrooms. Kyoto's sister ran after and asked her what was wrong, and the 10-year-old reported that's who killed Reggie and Kyoto.
Jessica and Derek thought they had gotten away with murder. They were riding high. They thought they were invincible until that point that a child stepped up to identify them. And at that point, she knew that it was all over.
Jessica immediately leaves the house without Derek's bail money. Reggie's niece is taken to the police, who learn about Jessica and the person who connects her to both Garrett and Kyoto.
The police then reviewed Derek Golson's jail phone calls and realized that Derek Golson had had a conversation with Jessica Delancey about this encounter with the 10-year-old niece. Based upon their investigation and hearing these phone calls that were made between Derek and Jessica, a warrant for her arrest was obtained from a judge.
Jessica is picked up at her home and taken into custody. Confronted with her own voice on tape, Jessica confesses to investigators.
Jessica not only confessed to her part in the murders, but she also revealed Derek's part in the murder as well.
Because Derek was in jail, Jessica no longer felt that she was under his thumb, under his rule, under his power, and therefore was much more comfortable in speaking to the police as to what had happened. At this point, she was going to look out for herself and without the fear of retribution from Derek.
In exchange for her testimony against Derek, Jessica is given a sentence of 48 years.
Derek pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of armed robbery. Based upon his plea agreement, he would be sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences.
And the irony of all of this is after Derek murdered Reginald, after he murdered his wife, they didn't get any money. They didn't find any money. So that was a wasted errand that ended with a lot of wasted lives.
Including Jessica's.
All of Jessica's dreams about freedom and being taken care of and having love in her life, they've all gone down the drain because of that fateful decision of getting involved with a man that she thought she loved.
You can always tell a person's future by the people they hang around with, and this guy was a drug dealer. She should have seen the writing on the wall.
I think that she began life as a very damaged woman, which made her more vulnerable to meeting someone like Derek Golson, who promised her the world. That's the tragedy of the story.
Like Jessica Delancey, Chicagoan Lisa Tony also has a taste for the fast life. And she's willing to trade in the man she has for one who can give her what she wants. After 6 years of marriage to husband Marcus, Lisa Tony seems to have it all.
Lisa and Marcus lived in Dalton, Illinois together with her son from a previous marriage.
They appeared to be happy to the outside world. She was a good homemaker and a good mother.
Marcus really worked hard as a custodian, and when he did get any extra money, he used that for flipping properties.
But Lisa takes on the lion's share when it comes to growing the couple's fortunes.
For more than 20 years, Lisa worked for a major phone company, eventually becoming a human resources manager. Lisa made substantially more than Marcus. She had a 6-figure salary.
Over time, Lisa starts to feel the pressure of keeping her family afloat.
As the breadwinner, you've got a lot of responsibility and a lot of extra stress.
And it isn't just the salary gap weighing on Lisa.
While she loved her husband, Marcus really had a temper, and he would just lash out at her over the smallest things.
They had some very bad altercations. Marcus had some violent temper, and he would become abusive.
She was really conflicted about their relationship.
When a handsome stranger moves in across the street, Lisa becomes even more torn.
She was immediately taken by his appearance. He was muscular, well-dressed, well-spoken, educated, and he knew how to impress people.
She attracted this young man, handsome man. She just wanted to have a little fun.
Cienki Lalamond is a serial con artist with a history of targeting women. And Lisa is about to become tangled up in one of his schemes.
Lisa had her life turned upside down by a man who was a master manipulator.
In Chicago, Lisa Tony is feeling stuck in a crumbling marriage with her husband, Marcus.
Marcus really had a temper, and he would just lash out at her over the smallest things. While she loved her husband, she just really could not take that treatment.
Lisa longs for the affection of a man who will treat her right.
She felt like maybe, she just wanted to have a little fun, wanted to change her lifestyle.
That opportunity comes knocking when a seductive stranger, Cienki Lalamond, moves into the neighborhood and introduces himself to Lisa.
Cienki was very smooth and suave. He had a kind of a sexual presence that would attract any woman.
He said that he was a financial consultant, and he started asking her, hey, how's your credit? She said, it's not very good, and he said, well, I can help you fix that.
He gave her his card and said, call me.
Lisa takes Cienki up on his offer, and it isn't long before she's revealing her personal problems that also need fixing. Cienki jumps at the chance to help Lisa take her mind off her troubled marriage.
He went through the courting process like any man would do. He wined and dined her and wooed her with gifts and flowers.
Their relationship kind of changed after a short while from someone she'd see in the neighborhood. There were romantic getaways.
She attracted this young man, handsome man, who was obviously very sexy.
To Lisa, Cienki is everything her husband is not. He's an attentive lover and flush with cash. And Marcus seems oblivious to Lisa's secret meetings with him.
Lisa was taken with this man's grand romantic gestures because this is something that she felt that she needed. But he wasn't doing it out of the kindness or generosity of his heart. He was doing it so that he can get her to do anything he wanted later on.
Cienki knows all the right moves to get Lisa to melt in the palm of his hands. But what looks like the start of a passionate affair is really just a con man's ploy to tee up his next score.
Cienki was a career criminal and quite often took advantage of women. That was his ploy, that was his game, that's what he was really good at. And he found the perfect victim in Lisa, because here was a woman who was having all sorts of marital issues and felt very unfulfilled in her marriage.
What Lisa doesn't know is that all this romance comes with a price.
He knew from the beginning that Lisa was basically going to be a huge gold mine. Marcus had a steady job. He did have good credit. He had property. He was the kind of person that credit card companies are eager to give credit to. Cienki took full advantage of that.
When he agreed to help her correct her credit, he also inquired about Marcus.
What does he do for them? Well, he's a janitor.
He would ask Lisa stuff about my mother's maiden name and all that stuff, and Marcus' mother's maiden name, including his social security number.
Lisa gave him all of her financial information. She would basically do whatever it was that he asked. Cienki had this way of being able to zero in on a woman and be able to get that person to do whatever it was that he wanted.
With an all-access pass to Marcus's personal information, Cienki gets to work, taking over his identity.
Cienki was a master identity thief. He created a false driver's license with Marcus Tony's name on it and Cienki's picture.
Cienki opened up a P.O. box in a mailing facility in Marcus Tony's name. He could easily receive and be accessible to Marcus's mail without any questions being asked.
Cienki has already done all the work needed to prosper at Marcus's expense, when Lisa tells him she's had enough of her marriage and wants to start a new life with him. That's when Cienki lets Lisa in on his shady dealings.
She implied that she wanted to do something negative or harmful to Marcus. And Cienki explained to her, rather than physically harming him, it would be much better to steal from him.
When Cienki confesses to Lisa that he's already laid the groundwork to rob Marcus blind, she tells him that she wants in on the action.
Almost any woman involved in an affair who finds out that their boyfriend is trying to financially defraud their husband would be upset and want to get out of that as quickly as possible. But Lisa, surprisingly, went along with it.
She was in favor of that. She felt that this was her way of getting back at him. It was perfect combination of factors for her.
It went beyond just having some sex on the side to wanting to financially destroy her husband. She wanted to humiliate him.
Now that Lisa's in on the con, the sky's the limit. And for the next 6 months, the conniving couple goes on an all-out spending spree.
Marcus had at least 9 different credit cards opened in his name, charges soaring up to at least $200,000. Marcus was oblivious to the fraud. Lisa was going about everyday life as if nothing had happened.
She's never displayed any regrets about stealing from Marcus. She thought she was justified, that he deserved what was happening to him and she deserved the good things that were coming from him.
Lisa was so deep into this extramarital affair with Cienki that she was oblivious to the fact that the debt that she was creating for her husband, the financial ruin she was creating for her husband, she would be responsible for at some point, because legally she'd have to help pay that off.
7 months into their spending spree, Lisa decides it's time to show Marcus the door.
Lisa threw him out. She told him, go live in one of your rental apartments and get out. She threatened him with divorce.
Marcus didn't want to go. He loved her and thought they could work out whatever their problems.
That's when Lisa tells him that she's already moved on.
Lisa was able to tell her husband about this infidelity because of the years of abuse she suffered at his hands. So in some ways, this might have been the final kiss-off, the revenge, by letting him know not only was she free of him, but she found someone who she felt was a much better person.
And when Marcus discovers the second part of his wife's betrayal, Lisa will stop at nothing to protect her new man.
Marcus was starting to become aware that maybe he and Lisa had something to do with this. They came up with a plan so they wouldn't get caught.
Zelinski had a great amount of power over Lisa that caused Lisa to act the way she did.
After throwing her husband Marcus out of the house in Chicago, Lisa Tony is having the time of her life with con artist Cienki Lalamond. Lisa and her new man are living the high life, literally at Marcus's expense.
She had expensive jewelry, beautiful clothes, luxury hotel stays. This was not the life that she had been used to.
Lisa was getting everything from Cienki that she did not get from Marcus. All these things fit into her idea of what her lifestyle should be.
For Lisa to have gotten involved in that affair with Cienki, and to take it even a step further by wanting to hurt him financially, it speaks to perhaps her being abused by him for many years. She was very unhappy in her marriage, so this was a way to get some sort of revenge.
But Lisa and Cienki's life in the fast lane is about to come to a screeching halt when creditors catch up with Lisa's estranged husband, Marcus.
Marcus started getting all these calls from credit card companies, and he was having to dispute these charges, and he was just baffled as to why this was even happening to him.
Marcus had excellent credit before. He'd always paid his bills on time.
Marcus starts to wonder if he's deliberately being singled out, and he takes a guess at who might want to do him wrong.
He came to the house and saw 2 expensive cars parked in the driveway. Marcus became suspicious of Lisa.
And when he looked in, he saw Cienki was there along with Lisa.
He was able to tie in all the things that had been happening to him, including his credit problems.
Marcus realizes that not only has Cienki taken up with his wife, he's also taken off with his money.
Marcus began contacting Lisa and threatening her to go to the police. He figured out what was going on.
The prospect of bringing the police into the picture doesn't sit well with Lisa.
She panicked and started complaining to Cienki that we have to do something because we're going to get in trouble.
I just want to get rid of him. Like,
He wanted to kill him dead right then and there.
But Cienki is a master at the long game, and he has an explosive plan. He tells Lisa that he has a friend who can hook them up with exactly what they need to get the job done.
Cienki spent some time in a halfway house where he met another young man who had knowledge of how to make bombs. It was a standard pipe bomb. It had a pipe with 2 end caps with a hole drilled through that a wire could be placed in, and then it was connected to a pull chain.
Cienki appears to be such a sadistic individual. Not only did he want Marcus's wife, but he also wanted to torture. He wanted to play with Marcus. He wanted to destroy Marcus. In many ways, psychologically, he had a predator mentality. And because he did it so well, he was reinforced to keep doing it over and over again.
While Cienki is busy getting his hands dirty, Lisa patiently waits across town for word that the job is done.
At the time, she was safely in a hotel room in the city. They were communicating with each other over the cell phone.
Cienki sets the plan in motion, and once he has his weapon, he packages it inside a VCR case and puts it in a box that's rigged to go off when opened. Next, he gift wraps the package before shipping it to Marcus's new home across town.
So whichever side of the package you would open, it would pull that chain and explode.
He devised what he considered a perfect crime.
The next day, Marcus receives this special delivery. When he opens it up a little, he sees the VCR case. And Marcus thinks that the package contains another betrayal from his wife.
Marcus knew Lisa was sexually involved with Cienke, and he initially thought that there was going to be a videotape of Cienke with Lisa in his VCR. He still loved her and did not want to be confronted with her being physically involved with this character. So he didn't want to open the package initially. He put the package on the side.
But a few days later, Marcus decides to bring the box to the police.
He was torn because he knew she was being defrauded. He wanted that to stop. He really didn't want necessarily Lisa to go to jail. He wanted to get back with her.
He said, you know, I've been the subject of credit card fraud, and I think that this is someone trying to play some kind of prank with me.
The police dismiss Marcus's concerns and send him home with the package without examining its contents. And Marcus has no interest in finding out what's inside either, leaving Cienke to turn into a ticking time bomb of his own.
He's thinking he's gonna get word of a huge explosion any moment, but 8 days pass and he hears nothing.
Frustrated, Cienke decides to up the ante.
Cienke starts to call Marcus's house and leave these taunting messages.
So why don't you go ahead and open that little present I got you?
He really attacked his manhood, and he said, "Open the box. Are you a coward?"
Cienke and Lisa were taunting Marcus to open that box and blow himself up. Tells me that these were people who were so deeply involved, so viscerally connected to one another, that they shared in the joy of hurting someone else.
Lisa had 8 days to warn Marcus about his potential doom, but she wanted him to die.
The menacing calls to Marcus finally pay off. 8 days after Cienke sends the package, Lisa finally gets the news she's been waiting for.
Lisa was watching the local news and she heard about an explosion at a South Side apartment, and then she sees a body bag being taken out of this apartment building, and the victim's name is Marcus Toney.
Lisa hurries home to Cienke, wondering what their next move should be. But instead of Cienke, she finds someone else waiting at her front door.
I'm just so shocked that somebody would do such a thing.
Cienke's gone.
Right after the murder, Cienke fled. He went to Jamaica. Who is he meeting there? A woman that he met from an online dating site.
After Marcus Toney is killed by a pipe bomb mailed to him by his estranged wife Lisa and her lover Cienke Lallemande, Lisa Toney finds herself facing some tough questioning from law enforcement.
Well, Lisa became a suspect almost immediately because they knew that this fraud activity was going on. And they also knew about the voicemail messages of the Chicago police. They started putting two and two together.
They took her in. She was held for a substantial period of time. The police decided to break her. She became very upset.
While Lisa's taking the heat for her husband's murder, Cienke has already moved on with a woman he met online.
Lisa eventually found out she wasn't the only woman for Cienke. She was one in a long line of women who had been duped and had been conned. Cienke was such a manipulator, such a womanizer.
And even though Lisa's been left holding the bag, she's still not ready to turn on her man. 2 days into her questioning by police, Lisa continues to maintain her innocence, insisting that she had nothing to do with her husband's murder.
She agreed to take a polygraph test, and she failed it. And that made the investigators more focused on her involvement in the case.
Detectives decide to turn up the heat and share with her the grisly details of Marcus's death.
They started showing her crime scene pictures. She became very upset.
But she never acknowledged that she was involved.
Instead, Lisa points the finger at her lover.
Lisa did tell the detectives she was seeing another man, but at the same time, she didn't provide his name, and she even gave the wrong phone number. She was protecting him this entire time.
A few hours later, police release Lisa in the hopes that she'll lead them to more evidence. They suspect it's only a matter of time before her partner in crime reaches out. And sure enough, after 3 months on the run, Cienke calls Lisa.
She talked to Cienke at some point, and we got that number within hours. We tracked down the address for the tower it was beeping off of. That was coming from this woman's house in Hollywood.
Authorities started doing surveillance on the house. They saw a man that had Cienque's build, zeroed in on him. They took him into custody, and that's when he revealed, yes, I am Cienque Lallemande.
Realizing he's backed into a corner, Cienque is more than willing to turn on Lisa to save his own skin.
In order to avoid the death penalty, he agreed to cooperate in the investigation. And according to Cienque, she wanted him dead, and she was part of the fraudulent act.
Marcus was killed as a result of that. He lost his life that day because he opened the box and the bomb exploded and killed him.
A month after his death, based on the strength of Cienque's testimony, Lisa is arrested and charged with credit card fraud and the murder of her husband, Marcus. But at trial, Lisa claims that she was just as much a victim as her husband.
She was fatally attracted to him, but as to his criminal activities, she had no knowledge nor participated in the homicide of her husband.
Lisa's never acknowledged that she was involved, although the evidence, in my opinion, was overwhelming. We actually had witnesses that testified about how she helped with the fraudulent part. And every significant event in this bombing, she was talking to Cienque on their cell phone. From purchasing components to when it was being built to its delivery.
Lisa Toni is found guilty of fraud and conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction. For his part in the crime, Cienque Lallemande is sentenced to life in prison.
Cienque was the mastermind into the means of causing the murder, but Lisa was clearly the motive. He will never get out of prison.
Lisa is sentenced to life in prison without parole.
She did what he wanted her to do, and based on that, she ended up having to spend, and is still spending, a substantial period of her life in prison.
At Lisa's sentencing, she apologized to her husband's family, saying how sorry she was, but they said that they were unmoved.
Lisa eventually found out she was one of a long line of women that Cienque had duped. It made her bitter, and it made her angry. But she learned life lessons. And certainly the most important lesson is, all that glitters is not gold.
ਜਾਈਏ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸਾਲ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਆਈਏ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਦੇਵੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਤੇਰੀਆਂ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਲਈਆਂ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਰੱਖ ਗਈਆਂ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਰੱਖ ਗਈਆਂ ਤੇਰੇ ਲੰਗਰੋਂ ਫੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਖਾ ਕੇ ਚੱਲੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਦੇਵੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਦੇਵੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਕੇ ਖਰੀ ਵਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਤੇਰੀਆਂ ਲੀਆਂ ਖਰੀਦ ਕੈਸਟਾਂ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਖਰੀ ਲਗਾਵਾਂਗੇ 1 ਸਾਲ ਤੇਰੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਉਪਮਾ ਟੇਪਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ 1 ਸਾਲ ਤੇਰੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਉਪਮਾ ਟੇਪਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸਾਲ ਬੁਲਾਇਓ ਗੱਪੇ ਮਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਕਲਾਇਓ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਦੇਵੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਦੇਵੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਉਪਮਾ ਗਾਈ ਮਾਣੋ ਚੱਲੀਏ ਦੇਵ ਨੇ ਤੇਰੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਉਪਮਾ ਗਾਈ ਆਰਐਮਸੀ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਰੀਲ ਬਣਾਈ ਆਰਐਮਸੀ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਰੀਲ ਬਣਾਈ ਸਰਦੂਲ ਨੇ ਕੀਸਾ ਭਰਿਆ ਜਿਨੇ ਰਗਾੜੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਿਆ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਛੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਦੇਵੋ 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 ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਵੋ